Chapter 3174. The kayak Chen Zhao was on was calm. The kayaks that the others were on were having a hard time. The sea wolves were just the appetizer. Behind them, seaweed emerged from the sea surface. The seaweed was like a living creature wrapping around the kayak. It also swept toward the spiritualists. The seaweed also had suckers like octopus tentacles. It would stick to human skin if it touched it, making it hard to peel off. It could also inject powerful paralyzing toxins. Even two of the spiritualists had fallen for their tricks. Right now they were lying on the kayak, unable to move. However, the seaweed wasn't much of a threat to most spiritualists. With everyone working together, they still made it through the seaweed's attack zone. But the next wave was 3 dragon crocodiles emerging from the sea. After a hard fight, the spiritualists finally killed 1 dragon crocodile. The 2 dragon crocodiles escaped. Only then did the group reach the island's coastline. But as soon as they reached the island, countless short humanoid creatures charged out of the forest. With sharp howls they pounced at the group. Chen Zhao had heard of these things before. They were about the same size as underlings. They were called violent gnomes. Their habits were similar to underlings. They were both short and social creatures. However, they were completely different from underlings. The violent gnomes held wooden spikes or spears. Some carried wooden swords and shields. Although there were many tyrannical gnomes in groups, there were still many of them. But individually they were too weak. Also, they were much easier to deal with than the sea wolves. So, the group easily killed almost half of the gnomes. The rest of the tyrannical gnomes scattered in confusion. "Do a head count and treat the injured," Familati said. "We'll rest here." Although no one was heavily injured, many had minor injuries that would affect their next move. Some people searched the bodies of the gnomes to see if there were any valuable loot. Unfortunately, the gnomes were so poor that they didn't leave anything valuable. After a short rest and recuperation, everyone had recovered their strength. They all looked at Becky Lou Lisha, waiting for her next order. "Don't be in a hurry to leave. Rest here for a night and enter the island in the morning," Lou Lisha said. Everyone was a little surprised. In their impression, Becky Lou Lisha was a very impatient and aggressive woman. She actually gave the order to rest on the spot instead of entering the forest overnight. Of course, regarding this order of hers, everyone was very happy to accept it. After all, a few hours of intense mental tension and battles had already drained most of them of their energy. The ordinary crew members helped to set up the tents or prepare some food. Many people were able to relax and rest. Even Chen Zhao didn't like walking in a cold and wet environment in the wind and rain. Also, the island they were on was filled with some kind of divine power. Even Chen Zhao's senses couldn't probe too deeply. Although it was not an easy journey. However, Becky Lou Lisha was a super rich person, so the things she prepared were of high quality. From tents to food, there was even a chef in charge of cooking among the crew. However, even if they wanted to rest, they might not be able to. Late at night, there were still things constantly harassing them. Fortunately, the attacks were not fierce and the night watchman could still deal with them. Everyone rested until morning and finally recovered a lot of energy. After a simple wash in the morning, everyone gathered and started moving. Even though it was already past 9 in the morning, the sky was still dark. The wind and rain didn't stop at all. Logically speaking, it was rare for a storm to last for such a long time on the sea. Because the air currents and ocean currents were very fluid, most of the wind and rain would be very strong, but they would only last for a short time. Chen Zhao was somewhat disappointed. Rushing in the rain wasn't a good choice. When they walked into the forest, many people in the team felt that there was something around them, including Chen Zhao. He also felt something around them. But he couldn't find what it was exactly. There was definitely something. After all, anyone who could sense it would have strong senses. It was more like intuition than perception. Chen Zhao found it unbelievable. What could escape his senses? He flipped it over and over again, carefully sensing it. But he still couldn't find what was following them. Suddenly, Chen Zhao's eyes widened. He thought of a possibility. Just then someone exclaimed, "Be careful. Be careful. These trees are alive. They're alive. They can move." As expected, Chen Zhao thought. That was what he'd guessed. It was almost impossible to hide from his senses. Unless these things were actually within his sensing range. They were just things that he'd overlooked. Apart from the plants, there was nothing else around them. The spiritualist's cry confirmed Chen Zhao's guess. Just then the ground started shaking. Everyone couldn't stand steadily. A not-so-tall tree in front of them suddenly rose from the ground. Only then did they realize that it was only a small sapling sticking out of the ground. At least compared to its entire body, the 10-meter-tall tree was only a small bean sprout. Everyone raised their heads and stared at the towering tree in disbelief. So big, so tall, everyone was ready for battle. The tree before them bent down. There were clear facial features on the top of the tree. While everyone was observing it, it was also observing them. Humans, there is an unimaginable horror ahead. Stop. This is the greatest mercy you can give yourself. Everyone stared at the tree in shock. It didn't show any hostility. Even Qin Zhao was surprised. He'd thought that this would be an unavoidable battle. But this giant tree didn't have any hostility or murderous intent. Perhaps Qin Zhao couldn't tell good from evil, but he could tell if it was hostile. Just then Becky Lulisha walked up and said, "What if we must go forward? You'll stop us?" "My responsibility isn't to stop you. I'm just using my own emotions as the standard. I was once a little sapling planted by a human. Although that human only occupied a very small part of my life, it was the happiest time of my life. He taught me many things such as kindness. I hope that you won't go to your deaths." Chapter 3175. Qin Zhao looked at the tree spirit. "Then what's your job? Don't let the thing inside come out." "What's inside?" "Snake," the tree spirit said. Everyone looked at Qin Zhao with disdain. Clearly, they thought they had a comprehensive understanding of snakes and felt that they were experienced. "Sir, please move," Becky Lulisha said coolly. Lulisha said indifferently, "If you don't intend to forcefully stop us." The giant tree's dryad made way for its huge body, and all the plants along the way avoided it, directly forming a broad path. Everyone was dazed. Did he convince the tree spirit so easily? They'd thought that even if they didn't attack, they'd have to drag it out for half a day. But, that's it? You're not going to persuade it anymore? Everyone couldn't get used to such a direct result. Everyone walked past with doubtful gazes. At the same time, they were also somewhat vigilant. They were worried that it was a trap or some scheme. But there was nothing. Nothing. When Qin Zhao passed by the tree spirit, he stopped. "Who do you work for?" Qin Zhao asked the tree spirit. "I work for a god, but I haven't received payment in a long time. If I want you to sell yourself, what price do I have to pay? You definitely don't have what I want. How about this?" Qin Zhao took out a bottle. It was filled with green liquid. The giant tree's dryad stretched out a thin branch and wrapped the green bottle around its branch. "Happy to serve you, my master." Everyone was stunned. They looked at Qin Zhao in surprise and then at the tree spirit. No way. How could he get the tree spirit's loyalty so easily? It couldn't be a lie, right? At that moment, the giant tree's dryad pulled open its main trunk and revealed a tree hole. A green light flickered in the tree hole. The tree spirit dug around in its chest and took out a ball of green light. It gave Qin Zhao. "My master, please accept my life essence. This is the highest loyalty I can offer." Qin Zhao put away the tree spirit's life essence. Becky Lulisha looked at Qin Zhao in shock. "That works too?" She was also tempted. She looked at the tree spirit. "Sir, do you accept a different boss? I can give you more benefits. Whatever he offered, I'll give you double." "Sorry, madam, betrayal is not allowed." Qin Zhao chuckled at Becky Lulisha, who had lost. Becky Lulisha was somewhat unwilling. She looked at Qin Zhao again. "Give him to me. Name the price." "Sorry, you can't afford it." Lulisha could feel the malice and mockery in Qin Zhao's smile. It was as if he was mocking her for overestimating herself. Becky Lulisha turned around and left unhappily. Chuckling, Qin Zhao looked at Becky Lulisha's back. "Wait for me here," he said to the dryad. Qin Zhao really liked the giant triad. He had a close relative in his family, forest shepherd Eugenus. These plant-type supernatural creatures all had one thing in common, and that was peace. Even Eugenus from hell, even though he was Samuel's direct subordinate, Eugenus wasn't evil at all. "Master, it's very dangerous ahead." "I know." Smiling, Qin Zhao turned around and waved. Everyone in the team was clearly distancing themselves from him. From afar, Famirati gave Qin Zhao a look. She didn't say it, but Qin Zhao could roughly understand what she meant. Of course, Gaia was also being ostracized. Smiling bitterly, Gaia walked with Qin Zhao. "You ruined my chance to earn some extra money. Don't worry. Soon you'll have a chance to earn extra money." "What?" "Because I've roughly guessed where this is." "Where is this?" "The legendary Treasure Island, the place where the Pirate King plundered his entire life's treasures." Gaia's eyes brightened. "You mean the Pirate King's treasures are here?" "I don't know if there are treasures, but I know it's very dangerous here." Just then Qin Zhao suddenly noticed a strange rock by the side of the road. Rather than a rock, it was more like a stone statue's head. Qin Zhao walked to the side and picked up the statue. It was a very delicately carved stone head. Qin Zhao tossed it in his hand. It was a bit heavy. Judging from the stump of the neck, it seemed to have been chopped off by a sharp weapon. However, the sharp weapon did not have enough strength, nor was it sharp enough. It only went less than an inch into the neck, but because of the force the entire neck was shattered. Why did you pick this up? Is it a statue of a famous historical figure? Or is it very valuable? No, I think it's worthless. Is it a magic tool? Not really. Then why did you pick it up? Because it was originally a living human. Human? You mean a human who was petrified? Probably. Petrification probably doesn't last long, especially after the victim dies. The body will also turn back into flesh and blood. Looking at this head, it's at least 100 years old. What if it's the legendary Medusa? You're saying that the original owner of this head was petrified because he faced Medusa? If the information I have is true, the dangerous existence on this island is Medusa. Just then the others also noticed some stone statues by the side of the road. These stone statues were very strange. They didn't look like ordinary art. They looked more like the expression of a panicked person. Most of them were like that. Qin Zhao and Gaia also found many stone statues by the side of the road, which confirmed their guess. Suddenly there was a scream. Qin Zhao saw a spiritualist covering his neck. His neck had been pierced by a stone spear. Qin Zhao looked over and saw a group of violent gnomes in the forest. However, they were different from the gnomes that had attacked them last night. A portion of these tyrannical gnomes had petrified. Some only had small parts such as their hands and feet, but some had extremely large areas of petrification. However, some tyrannical gnomes had a very large petrification area, almost more than 80% of their body surface area. They were also much stronger than the ones that had attacked them last night. They were more agile, ferocious, and dangerous. The gnomes from last night were like half-grown monkeys. But the weakest of the petrified gnomes attacking them now had the destructive power of an adult baboon. The gnomes swam in the grass or jumped on the treetops. In the blink of an eye, someone was injured again. Almost everyone in the team had missed the power of the petrified gnomes. Only then did they realize that the gnomes attacking them this time were completely different from the ones last night. Chapter 3176. The battle was intense. To be honest, the gnomes weren't that strong. But they didn't have no advantages at all. Their numbers were their biggest advantage. Secondly, they weren't afraid of death and were savage by nature. They were willing to pay any price, even if it was just to bite a spiritualist or stab an enemy with a stone spear. There was another important point. These stone tyrant gnomes had very high magic resistance. Low-level spells couldn't work on them at all. The spiritualists here were all high-level. They had a bunch of mid-level and advanced spells. But using mid-level and advanced spells to kill the gnomes was impossible. It was like using a cannon to kill a mosquito. It was purely a waste of mana. One or two would be fine, but the problem was that there were countless tyrannical stone gnomes. Even the high-level spiritualists couldn't maintain such a high mana output. So casualties started appearing. Even Becky Lou Lisha couldn't guarantee her own safety. Only Qin Zhao and Gaia watched the show. Or rather, they were ostracized. They weren't attacked at all. Come and help. Becky Lou Lisha had no choice but to ask for help. But her attitude wasn't so peaceful. Sorry, I think we've been kicked out of the team. Are you ordering us or asking us? Qin Zhao smiled at Becky Lou Lisha. Do you think you can stay out of this? Becky Lou Lisha yelled, gritting her teeth. Qin Zhao shrugged with a smile. He took out a can of beer and handed it to Gaia. Want one? Gaia took the can. Snacks. Miss Becky, you should think about your own situation first. You don't have to worry about our safety. Becky Lou Lisha was furious. Her pride wouldn't allow her to lower her head to Qin Zhao. Do your best and I'll pay you more. Becky Lou Lisha said hatefully. Money was often the best thing to stimulate a human's potential. As expected, Becky Lou Lisha's words ignited everyone's fighting spirit. The spiritualists didn't hold back anymore. They all used their best skills. The situation, which was originally at a slight disadvantage, was instantly reversed. After fighting for half an hour, everyone used up 70% to 80% of their mana. They finally chased the gnomes away. Fortunately, the gnomes weren't really unafraid of death. Otherwise they would really suffer. However, Becky Lou Lisha obviously could not accept this result. She stared furiously at Qin Zhao and Gaia. Capture them for me. Lou Lisha was furious at the moment. Although they had just gone through a huge battle, her side still had the absolute advantage. They had the advantage in numbers. Therefore, she was not worried about any accidents at all. But an accident really did happen. A spiritualist in his 70s stood up. "Sorry, I'm not your fighter," the spiritualist said. "I reject your request." Qin Zhao remembered that this spiritualist was called Old Ankh. But along the way, Qin Zhao didn't interact with this Old Ankh at all. The two of them were basically strangers. But Qin Zhao did not expect Old Ankh to speak up for him now. Qin Zhao looked at Old Ankh in surprise. Old Ankh looked at Qin Zhao from afar and nodded slightly. "This old man knows me?" Becky Lu Lisha and most people didn't expect this. There was actually someone here who was openly disagreeing with her. "Who else disagrees with me?" Becky Lu Lisha could no longer contain her anger. Everyone could even feel that Becky Lu Lisha was going to kick Old Ankh out of the team. Normally, no one would choose to continue disagreeing with Becky Lu Lisha. But two more people came out. One was Familati, and the other was also a passerby. They didn't talk to Qin Zhao at all. However, they were together with Old Ankh. "Miss Becky, I think you're really mistaken," Familati said calmly. "We accepted your employment, but that doesn't mean we're your fighters." Becky Lu Lisha's face was green with anger. She really didn't expect so many people to disagree with her in the team. Moreover, this kind of dissenting behavior had already threatened her authority in the team. "Anyone else?" Becky Lu Lisha asked in a low voice. The others didn't want to disagree with Becky Lu Lisha, but they didn't want to fight either. Becky Lu Lisha was like an enraged lioness. She looked at Qin Zhao with fury in her eyes. "Let's go." Becky Lu Lisha finally suppressed her anger. She chose to compromise and endure for now. The others were surprised that the aggressive Becky Lu Lisha would choose to endure and retreat. The three people who disagreed with Becky Lu Lisha walked up to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao looked at Old Ankh and another spiritualist. Narrowing his eyes, Qin Zhao said, "Old Ankh, you recognize me?" The other spiritualist also looked at Old Ankh with a confused expression. He'd made this choice because he was familiar with Old Ankh. Just now, Old Ankh had secretly sent him a message, telling him to believe in his choice. But why would Old Ankh make this choice? Even he didn't know. So he also wanted an answer. Old Ankh lowered his head and said, "I just came back from the 100 Ku Islands a month ago. I'm also one of the participants in the World Supernatural competition, although I didn't get a good ranking." Qin Zhao realized that Old Ankh had probably seen him in the 100 Ku Islands. Familati was even more surprised. If Old Ankh could participate in the World Supernatural competition, he should be one of the top ones. So why did he choose to go against Becky Lu Lisha? For justice. Stop joking. Old Ankh wasn't like that. Familati knew Old Ankh. Old Ankh was a greedy old man with no bottom line. Why would someone like him stand up against Becky Lu Lisha in that situation? Unless there were benefits, or he knew Qin Zhao and felt that working with Becky Lu Lisha against Qin Zhao wouldn't give him an advantage. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't make such a choice. "I see." Qin Zhao nodded and didn't continue asking. Old Ankh's companion and Familati were even more confused. Was it because Qin Zhao was also a participant? Moreover, he was one of those contestants who ranked very well. So Old Ankh knew Qin Zhao and knew that he was strong? That was possible. If you're kicked out of the team by that rich lady, you won't be able to get your reward. Don't you think it's a pity? Old Ankh chuckled. Get my reward? Then I have to be alive to get it. Others might not know, but he knew how terrifying Qin Zhao was. It wasn't worth risking his life for that bit of reward. Chapter 3177. Ankh had seen the chaos in the Baiku Islands. In that chaos, he and a few other contestants had fought against a magical beast with great difficulty. In that battle, 2 contestants who were much stronger than him had died tragically in the mouth of the magical beast. If there were no accidents, he and the other contestants would have become ghosts in the mouth of the magical beast. Just as they were in despair, Qin Zhao appeared. No, he didn't appear. He just passed by. It was just a glimpse, but it left a deep impression on Ankh. The existence that he and the other contestants felt despair was just trash that Qin Zhao could casually toss away. It only took a second. Qin Zhao casually attacked and the magical beast turned into a pile of mud. That battle had left a deep impression on him. Of course, the one that left the deepest impression was still Qin Zhao's casual attack. On the first day, Ankh had recognized Qin Zhao. He had wanted to get close to Qin Zhao. But considering that Qin Zhao had hidden his identity and strength, he definitely didn't want others to know. If he were to expose himself rashly, who knew if Qin Zhao would take it out on him? So, Ankh had been pretending not to know Qin Zhao these few days. He didn't even pay attention to Qin Zhao, let alone communicate. On the side, Ankh's friend Robert was confused. Mr. Qin, I really want the reward, but I want my life even more. Very smart choice. What about now? Do you want to continue? Or leave. Leave how? Qin Zhao could tear open a spatial crack. But he hadn't recorded the spatial coordinates of this place yet. He needed some time. This wasn't Earth. It was another world. After all, if Treasure Island was on Earth, it wouldn't have remained mysterious for hundreds of years. After all, humans had already conquered the polar regions. No matter how mysterious Treasure Island was, it couldn't remain hidden forever. Then stay here for now, Qin Zhao said. I'll leave after I figure out the secrets of this place. Before that, you guys can act on your own. Familati didn't know Qin Zhao's identity, so he immediately said after hearing Qin Zhao's words. Mr. Qin, didn't you see the situation just now? This island is full of danger. It's better for us to team up. It's better for everyone. I suggest that you rest here, Qin Zhao said. This is the best and safest choice. Familati hesitated. He looked at Qin Zhao. What about you? I'm not afraid of death. Familati stared at Qin Zhao speechlessly. Mr. Qin, do you know where this is? If I'm not mistaken, this should be the legendary Treasure Island. Familati, Old Ankh, and Robert were stunned. In the next instant, the expressions in their eyes changed. Treasure Island. The legendary Treasure Island. Greed is very dangerous. Qin Zhao chuckled at the three. Mr. Qin, are you stopping us from exploring this island? Why should I stop you? I'm only telling you about the danger and giving you my advice. As for whether you accept it or not, that's your business. If you find the treasure, that's your own ability. Of course, I'll also use my own methods to find the treasure. No one could turn a blind eye to the treasures on the island. Even Qin Zhao couldn't do it. Even though Qin Zhao already had enough money. But he was still very curious about the treasure on the island. It seemed that the legendary treasure really had endless charm. Mr. Qin, you knew from the start that Ms. Becky's target was the island? No, I found out after coming here. I've been searching for the island for a while now, so I have some information about it. I just couldn't find the way. I didn't expect Becky Lu Lisha to have a way to enter the island. Qin Zhao glanced at the three. Alright. This island isn't the real Treasure Island. I heard that there are a total of 7 islands. We're only on the first one. If we want to go to the next island, we need to find the key on this island first. Everyone's eyes hardened and they looked at Qin Zhao in confusion. Logically, Qin Zhao shouldn't reveal such secret information. Keeping the secret alone would definitely give him the greatest benefits. But Qin Zhao chose to say it in front of everyone. They didn't understand Qin Zhao's intentions. Don't think too much. If you're really interested in exploring all 7 islands, the chances will be higher with more people. If it's just comparing strength, I don't think we need to be afraid of our competitors. But this isn't a game that only looks at strength. In other words, if any one of us gets the key to the next island, we have to share it. Of course. Do you want to keep the treasure for yourself? Or do you want to go back? Find Miss Becky? Old Ankh thought for a moment and said, I agree, but I need a guarantee. If we really find the treasure, we can get our share and we won't be killed by you. Familati and Robert both looked at Old Ankh in shock. Was the old man so afraid of this man? I'm already standing on Treasure Island. If I want to keep it for myself, I can kill all of you right now and won't leave any competitors. I can completely decipher it by myself. If you and Ms. Becky are still alive, it means that I'm playing according to the rules that everyone agrees on. Of course, the others won't break the rules. Smiling, Qin Zhao said, as for the rest, no one can provide an absolute guarantee. Even if you sign a magic contract with me now, it's just a piece of paper to me. Any curse is meaningless to me. Old Ankh thought about it. It seemed to make sense. Qin Zhao was so powerful. He wanted to use a magic contract to restrict Qin Zhao. That was a pipe dream. Even the most vicious magic contract would devour the violator. But if Qin Zhao had this magic contract, no one knew who would eat who. I accept your explanation, Old Ankh said calmly. Then let's talk about the distribution of the treasure, Qin Zhao said. You can each get 1/10. The rest is mine. Robert was displeased. This distribution isn't reasonable. I can guarantee that you'll be absolutely safe within my sight and senses, Qin Zhao said. If you can give up on this guarantee, then you can get 1/5. If any of you give up on this guarantee and are confident that you can find the final treasure without my protection, I can give you 1/5 of the treasure. Okay, Robert. Is your life more important or money? Old Ankh interrupted him. Chapter 3178. Robert was almost pulled away by Old Ankh. Old Ankh, what's wrong with you? What right did he have to let the other party monopolize 6%? We only get 1% each. This isn't fair. I can't accept it. What if we can't beat him even if we work together? Old Ank asked, looking at Robert. Then we'll work together with Becky Lulisha and the others. What if we can't beat him even if we work together with Becky Lulisha and the others? He's that strong? Old Ank nodded seriously. Robert's eyes flashed. Even so, he won't want both sides to suffer, right? Both sides suffer? What if he can easily kill all of us with one hand? We won't even have a chance to fight back? Not even the slightest chance. Is he also a participant in the World Supernatural competition? No, he's the judge, Old Ank said. Old Ank said, in the chaotic battle of the demonic beasts in the 100 Treasury Archipelago, he easily killed a terrifying demonic beast in an instant. Before that, I and a few other spiritualists who were not weak almost wiped out that demonic beast. Robert stopped talking. He hadn't participated in the World Supernatural competition before. But his social circle wasn't small. He naturally knew the standards of the World Supernatural competition. Those who could become the judges of the World Supernatural competition. All of them were among the top in the world of supernatural beings. So Robert understood Old Ank's concern. If Chen Zhao wanted to kill them all, he could do it in a matter of minutes. There was no need to doubt. Zhang Tianyi would understand after thinking about it. Both openly and secretly, Zhang Tianyi had saved the world no less than 5 times. Chen Zhao, who was also at the top, would not be weak either. Boss, there's a cave ahead. Then go in and take a look, Becky Lulisha said, dissatisfied. Then come back and report. Ever since Chen Zhao and the others' betrayal, she'd been in a bad mood. No matter who it was an extremely bad attitude. However, the person who came back to report had a troubled expression. Becky Lulisha frowned. If you have something to say, just say it. I don't dare to go in. What did you find? There are many stone statues outside the cave. And then? I suspect that they were originally living creatures, but they were petrified and turned into statues. Petrification? Was there no way to resist? Your magic power is so strong that even if you're petrified, you should be able to use your magic power to resolve it. There was more than one type of petrification magic. At least Becky Lulisha knew of 3 to 4 types. Most petrification spells could be broken. Some petrification spells created a layer of rock on the skin of the caster. This kind of petrification magic was the most basic magic and also the easiest to break. This layer of rock could be completely destroyed by physical means. There was also a more advanced petrification spell that petrified flesh and blood. And this petrification magic was directly used on the body. Therefore, one's own magic resistance and the strength of one's magic power determined the effectiveness of petrification. If he didn't have enough mana, the petrification spell would continue to spread until he was completely petrified. If he had enough mana, he could easily dispel the petrification magic. The spiritualist still had a troubled and worried look on his face. I realized that a few of the statues are spiritualists. One of them might be the French court magician Neo Randall who disappeared 200 years ago. The spiritualist was worried that if his guess was correct, then if even Master Neo Randall couldn't resist the petrification spell, how could he resist it? There were also many spiritualists here. Judging from the clothes on the statues, they were clearly from the same group as Neo Randall. They must have been petrified at the same time. He really couldn't imagine who could petrify so many spiritualists, including Neo Randall, so easily. So Becky Lulisha asked him to enter the cave alone. To him, this was no different from suicide. Becky Lulisha was even more dissatisfied. She felt that apart from the few traitors, the rest were all useless. This made her even more dissatisfied with Chen Zhao. Becky Lulisha stared at the spiritualist with a dark expression. What are you trying to say? There's something very terrifying on this island with a powerful petrification spell. Are you scared? Becky Lulisha asked. Shouldn't I be scared? Why do you think I'm paying you such a high price? The spiritualist sneered. Boss, taking a risk and risking your life are 2 different things. Plus, you cheated us beforehand, so stop emphasizing your high pay. Becky Lulisha was about to explode in anger. After a few breaths, she forcefully suppressed her anger. Which direction is the cave you mentioned? That way. Tell the others to go there immediately. It was noon. Everyone was resting and preparing lunch. But because of Becky Lulisha's mood, their lunch break was cut short. Everyone knew what was going on. But no one dared to provoke Becky Lulisha. They brought food and ate along the way. However, the team did not walk for long before they saw a scene that made them lose their appetite. Dozens of stone statues appeared before them, all vivid and lifelike. These stone statues were all panic-stricken. Most were running away. A few were facing the front. Perhaps they were preparing to fight, or they couldn't react fast enough to escape. And the direction they were facing was the gloomy cave in front of them. Becky Lou Leisha glanced at them. Most of them looked worried or fearful. Clearly, they all knew that these statues were living people who had been petrified. There was a huge difference between petrified statues and real ones. They were all spiritualists, so it wasn't hard to notice the difference. Becky Lou Leisha knew that it would be too dangerous to let people enter the cave. Let's not talk about whether or not anyone would be willing. Even if someone was willing, it would be easy to lose manpower. Becky Lou Leisha really needed people now, so she didn't want to waste them here. She still had to avoid the necessary risks. Who can use long-range attacks and powerful spells to blast into the cave? Becky Lou Leisha felt that even if they had to fight, they shouldn't do it in the dark and narrow cave. It was safer to fight in the open space outside the cave. And before that, they could also make some preparations and arrangements in advance. Chapter 3179. 3 spiritualists stood out. They were all good at long-range attacks. One was an elementalist, one was a lightning wielder, and the last was a mad warrior. The first two were easy to understand. Elementalists were more common, while lightning wielder was a spiritualist that controlled lightning. They also had their own magic system, similar to elementalists. The mad warriors were special. They had the opposite system of reinforcement. The power of reinforcement came from the body. Most of them didn't have much magic power. Even Qin Zhao, who was unparalleled in the world in terms of level, wasn't the most outstanding among all the top spiritualists. The mad warriors were different. They all had enormous magic power. At least, they had much more magic power than spiritualists of other systems of the same level. However, the mad warriors couldn't learn most magic systems, so they created their own. That was to use a huge amount of mana to directly create mana bombs and release them in various forms to cause extremely terrifying damage. The others set up traps outside the cave. 10 minutes later they were done. The 3 spiritualists in charge of attacking were also in position. Begin. Under Becky Lou Leisha's command, the 3 spiritualists immediately used their best spells, aiming at the cave and releasing colorful magical radiances. The dark cave was also illuminated by the magic radiance. In the flashing light, everyone could vaguely see a huge silhouette. The 3 didn't stop attacking. Instead, it became more violent. Under the intense attacks, the huge silhouette didn't move at all. Suddenly, in the flashing light, the huge silhouette opened its eyes. In an instant, the earth shook and the mountains shook. Everyone tensed up. There's something. It's coming out. Whoosh, the huge thing in the cave rushed out with a roar. So fast. So big, everyone's pupils constricted. They were just about to make a move, but in the next instant, an aura that was like the roar of mountains and the roar of a tsunami followed. The aura was almost tangible. First, it came from the 3 spiritualists in front. They were sent flying by the aura. It was as if they'd run into a truck. The people beside them were slightly better. Yes, just a little better. They weren't sent flying, but they almost couldn't stand against the level 24 wind. Some people even hugged the trees beside them so that they wouldn't be blown away. As for the traps they'd set up earlier, it seemed meaningless at this moment. That was because that huge thing had no intention of stopping to fight with them. Instead, he charged headfirst into the forest. What they thought was an unusual battle had ended with the escape of the giant creature. Everyone was dumbfounded. What had happened? Where am I? What am I doing? Old Ankh and Robert were currently fighting a group of tyrannical gnomes. It was different from the group of petrified, tyrannical gnomes he met in the morning. This group of tyrannical gnomes was just an ordinary race and their numbers were not large. And it wasn't the tyrannical gnomes that attacked them. Instead, they attacked the tyrannical gnome. This group of tyrannical gnomes was much weaker, and they were not as fearless as before. Without that fierceness, the tyrannical gnome was much less of a threat. Furthermore, this was their habitat. Old Ankh and Robert skillfully lit up their thatched huts and nests. Create as much chaos as possible. Don't think this behavior is cruel. In fact, the 2 of them had also discovered the skeletons of many people in the habitat of the tyrannical gnomes. It was easy to imagine what they had experienced when they were alive. When 2 humanoid races met, most of the time it would start with a massacre. Either they killed each other or they killed each other. Ignoring humans, the tyrannical gnomes also had a certain level of intelligence. Although they were bloodthirsty, this was actually the law of survival in nature. It was impossible to judge them by human standards. Of course, they would not use human standards to judge others. The most effective way was to return a tooth for a tooth, blood for blood. This method was very barbaric, but it was also very effective. as long as this group of tyrannical gnomes failed to organize an effective counterattack. Then old Ankh and Robert could kill and plunder without any scruples. Of course, they did not come here out of boredom to destroy and plunder. They discovered that the tyrannical gnome's habitat had a bloodstained rock. It was a rare and priceless magic raw material. That was why he wanted to take the money for himself. Just as the two sides were in a heated battle, another large wave of tyrannical gnomes charged at them. Old Ankh, why are there so many of them? They don't seem to be the same race, Old Ankh said. Strange, are they trying to take advantage of the situation? Old Ankh and Robert looked at the large wave of tyrannical gnomes charging at them. They don't look like they're here to take advantage of the situation. They look like they're running for their lives. Whoosh, suddenly a gust of wind blew past them, bringing with it sand and dust. They saw something rapidly approaching them from behind the group of tyrannical gnomes. And that thing was extremely fast, causing the ground to tremble. I hope my guess is wrong. I don't think it's the time to verify it. Should we run as well? Let's run. The two abandoned the battlefield, turned around and ran in the opposite direction. And that thing was still approaching them at an even faster speed. At the same time, they could already sense a terrifying aura. It was an aura that made one's hair stand on end. The two shuddered. How terrifying. What is this thing? Suddenly, that thing accelerated, and a huge half-human, half-snake creature rushed out of the churning dust. It was a woman, half-human, half-snake. Her upper body was naked, and her lower body was like a python. Of course, this woman's facial features weren't beautiful. It could even be said to be ferocious and ugly. There were countless snakes coiling around her head. She wasn't crawling on the ground but flying close to the ground at a low altitude. Medusa? That thing is Medusa? They thought that Medusa should be about the same size as them. But this half-human, half-snake monster in front of them was a giant creature that was more than 50 meters long. Medusa didn't pay attention to the two of them and flew over their heads. But this didn't mean that they were safe. This was because they realized that everything in the area behind them was being petrified. The two of them sucked in a breath of cold air and ran forward with all their might. If they were touched by the dust, they would probably be petrified as well. At that moment, there was a loud sound in front of them. The loud sound resounded throughout the entire island. Then they saw Medusa return. No, it should be said that she flew back. Chapter 3180. Medusa's huge body crashed down in front of them. However, her head was already gone. Her huge body lay motionless on the ground. Only her tail seemed to have some life left. It wriggled a few times. Their eyeballs were about to fall out of their sockets. What happened? What had defeated this legendary monster in an instant? Just then, Qinzhao and Gaia walked in from the forest. When he saw Ankh and Robert, Qinzhao was a bit surprised. But he didn't say anything. When Ankh and Robert saw Qinzhao and Gaia, they had too many questions to ask. Mr. Qin, wait. We'll talk after I'm done. Qinzhao walked to Medusa's corpse. The dark lava seeped into it. Ankh and Robert watched Qinzhao's actions. After the dark magma seeped into the Medusa's corpse, golden blood began to be squeezed out of the corpse. Qinzhao took out a container and stored the golden blood. Done. Qinzhao put away the container. Looks like this guy was a god in the past too, but not pure. Qinzhao glanced at Robert and Ankh. The rest is yours. I took the god blood, but she still has many good things on her. If you're not afraid of trouble, you can take all her flesh and blood. Robert and Ankh looked at Medusa's corpse and then at Qinzhao. Was Qinzhao the one who killed the legendary monster? It seemed like it. However, in just an instant, Medusa was beaten to death? Wasn't this efficiency a little too fast? Their hearts pounded, but old Ankh had seen Qinzhao fight before. He was shocked but not unable to accept it. However, the target was a legendary existence after all. The most famous monster in Olympian mythology, Medusa. Also, Medusa's aura when she appeared was indeed extraordinary. It was obvious that she wasn't weak, but it ended so hastily. They really didn't expect this. They couldn't accept it. But they looked at the huge Medusa's corpse. They didn't have the hobby of collecting corpses. It's not easy to find the corpse of a fallen god, Gaia reminded them. She didn't need it. If she did, she could get something better from Qinzhao. However, it did not mean that she did not know the value of this corpse. Even though Qinzhao had already taken the most precious god's blood. Deities? Robert and old Ankh exchanged looks. Medusa is considered a god? Mr. Qin, is Medusa a god? Yes, but he's a fallen god. Qinzhao had learned about the divisions of deities from Ares. Medusa belonged to the category of fallen deities. Depravity was not a change in mentality. Instead, it was the change in power. Medusa had a divine soul, a divine kingdom and divine power, but she did not have divinity. Divinity was something used to understand one's own power. For example, Blood Mary of the 23rd generation had no divinity. However, it wasn't that she couldn't have it. It was because she was a newborn young god. Divinity needed to grow slowly. As she understood and mastered her own power, she would gradually gain divinity. Medusa's divinity was taken away, which made it impossible for her to use her divine power. However, in order to use her power, she used another method to control her divine power. This was flesh sacrifice. She used other people's flesh to activate her divine power. However, this kind of sacrifice would twist and mutate her divine power. No one knew what kind of power it would turn into. This was also why Medusa had such a powerful petrifying ability. This wasn't an ordinary petrifying spell. It was a new power she obtained after twisting her divine power. This was the so-called fallen deity. Medusa was the youngest of the three Gorgon sisters. She was called the goddess of domination. Qin Zhao did not know what Medusa's original divine right was. However, after depravity, her divine right was twisted and she became petrified. Robert and Old Ankh did not know what a fallen deity was. However, anything with the word deity wouldn't be ordinary. The corpse of a deity. It was definitely priceless. But how should he deal with such a huge corpse? Also, what was valuable and what wasn't? After obtaining the god's blood, Qin Zhao turned and left. Robert did not dare to underestimate Qin Zhao anymore. After all, a legendary monster like this could be killed in a second before Qin Zhao. Now he completely believed Old Ankh's words. If he wanted to, he could really kill everyone. Where did that monster go? Don't care where she went. Let's go in now, Becky Lou Lisha urged. Becky Lou Lisha urged, move faster, we have to leave before that monster comes back. Becky Lou Lisha knew that this place was dangerous. That half-human, half-snake monster was especially terrifying. If they really fought against that monster, even if they were well prepared, they would still suffer heavy losses. It was even possible that the entire army would be wiped out. Everyone knew that time was tight, so they hurried into the cave. The cave was quite deep. It was about a few hundred meters into the mountain. They did not encounter any danger along the way. However, there were countless snake corpses. There were large and small snakes. There were no wounds on the corpses. It looked like he had died suddenly and in an extremely short period of time. Judging from the snake corpses, they seemed to have died not long ago. No one could tell how the snakes had died. They could only give up for now. In the dark environment, their nerves tightened even more. There's light up ahead, someone shouted. Becky Lou Lisha also saw a faint red light in front of them. Everyone sped up and saw a stone platform in the depths of the dark cave. There was a glowing red pearl on the platform. Found it. Becky Lou Lisha sped up even more. She could not suppress the joy on her face. It seemed that her goal was this red pearl. Boss, what is this? Becky Lou Lisha did not answer their questions. She hurried to the red pearl. Eagerly, she reached out her hands and grabbed the football-sized red pearl. Becky Lou Lisha's twin sister's magic began to seep into the red pearl. The red pearl's light became even more demonic. No one knew what Becky Lou Lisha wanted to do, but Becky Lou Lisha didn't say anything. They could only wait at the side. Just then someone said, Boss, if you need this pearl you can take it away. It's not safe here. Chapter 3181. Take him away? Becky Lou Lisha looked back at everyone. This thing isn't something you can take away just because you want to. You can come and try. Naturally, the crowd did not believe it, so they all came up to try. However, be it brute force or magic, he couldn't move the red pearl at all. The red pearl seemed to be stuck to the stone table. They couldn't even destroy it. Boss, what is this thing? Magic tools? I don't know what it is either, Becky Lou Lisha said. But it can control the entire island. Everyone was bewildered. Controlling the entire island? If he could control the entire island, it would be a divine artifact through and through. Becky Lou Lisha had a smile on her face. Of course, she knew what everyone was thinking. But now she was the first person to master the red orb. It was impossible for anyone else to gain control of the island. If he wanted to regain control of the island, he would have to kill her. However, most of these people obeyed her. Moreover, everyone's hearts were not united, which gave her absolute authority. Back then, when she was looking for these people, she had deliberately put together such a team. It was to prevent them from getting to know each other and then joining forces to exclude him. The others tried secretly, but just as Becky Lou Lisha had planned, they got nothing. Boss, to what extent can you control it? If I have enough mana, the entire island will be like my limbs. If I have enough mana, the life and death of any creature on the island will be in my hands. Of course, even now, as long as it's in front of me, I have the ability to decide its life and death. Becky Lou Lisha looked at everyone and everyone shuddered. Becky Lou Lisha's words were obviously a warning to them. Do not have any disloyalty to her. Becky Lou Lisha knew very well that money alone was not enough to make these spiritualists work for her wholeheartedly. She needed a bigger guarantee. Until she gained control of the island, her authority had never been enough. There were too many troublemakers in the team, except for Qin Zhao's few who had left the team. There were also quite a few troublemakers. Along the way, there had been many people who had talked back to her. Now there should be no one who will object to my next move. Everyone looked at Becky Lou Lisha. They had a premonition of what Becky Larissa was going to do. Boss, do you have a plan? Get rid of those traitors, Becky Lou Lisha answered matter-of-factly. Boss, I think we should first. Suddenly, dozens of stone spikes shot out of the cave wall without warning, directly piercing the person who spoke. Everyone's expression changed. They did not expect that the first thing Becky Lou Lisha did after gaining control of the island was to kill one of her companions. Regardless of whether their relationship with this person was good or bad, they all felt sorry for him. I don't want this team to have a second voice. Becky Lou Lisha said indifferently, Xianjing, is there a problem with you regaining your leader status? No boss, your decision is very wise. Moreover, I think traitors should be eliminated. Of course, the big baldy Xianjing was very happy. He had never planned on letting them go. But he didn't want to offend Becky Lou Lisha, whether it was during this operation or after it ended. Therefore, he had been restraining himself for the past 2 days. Becky Lou Lisha's identity was rather special. She was a rich person. Even his organization, Shallow Water Bay, was not willing to start a war with rich people. But it was different now. Becky Lou Lisha was on his side. But it was different now. Becky Lou Lisha was on the same side as him. She had a good reason and opportunity to take revenge. The others were more or less dissatisfied. But they still chose to remain silent. They were still very wary of Becky Lou Lisha's current power. That mysterious attack came without any prelude or warning. She could easily kill a rather strong spiritualist. This kind of method was very frightening. Looks like no one has any objections. Let's go. Right now, everyone was very depressed. But due to Becky Lou Lisha's pressure, no one said anything. Boss, do you know where those people are? Xianjing asked. No, Becky Lou Lisha said confidently. But my sensing range is already very large. As long as they are within 3 kilometers of me, they can't escape my sensing range. What about the half-human, half-snake monster from before? I can't sense its location either. It should be very far away. Don't worry. Even if it comes back now, I have a way to deal with it. Boss, this island is so big. Even if your sensing range is large, it won't be easy to find a few people. Do you think my power is limited to this? Becky Lou Lisha glanced at Xianjing. Xianjing's eyes flashed as he stared at Becky Lou Lisha. I'll show you true power. Becky Lou Lisha closed her eyes and magic spread from her body. Not long after, a large number of petrified tyrannical gnomes ran out of the forest. Everyone thought that a new round of battle was about to begin. But Becky Lou Lisha stopped everyone's attacks. Stop. They're not enemies now, Becky Lou Lisha said. As Becky Lou Lisha spoke, she turned to look at the petrified, tyrannical gnomes. Go find other humans besides us. Report to me when you find them. No one had expected Becky Lou Lisha to be able to control these violent petrified midgets. With these gnomes, it would be much easier for them to find people. Although this island was large, there were many tyrannical stone gnomes. As long as they split up, it would be very easy for them to find a few people. Soon they came back to report that they had found Qin Zhao and the others. They're in that direction. Let's go, Becky Lou Lisha said. Boss, what exactly is that red pearl? You don't need to know, Becky Lou Lisha said calmly, but there was still a hint of vigilance in her tone. Boss, that red pearl should have a limit of one person's control, right? Why do you ask? Becky Lou Lisha frowned and looked at Xianjing. Boss, I'm guessing that before you, the red pearl was controlled by a half-human, half-snake monster. The prerequisite for changing control is death. Chapter 3182. What are you trying to say? Becky Lou Lisha was even more displeased. Boss, that half-man, half-snake monster should be the one who controlled the red pearl before you. Now that he is dead, it is your turn to control it. Boss, do you understand what I mean now? Xianjing said with a smile. Becky Lou Lisha frowned. That half-man, half-snake monster doesn't look weak. Those people were able to finish it off in such a short time. Seems like I've underestimated them. Boss, why don't we discuss this further? Humph, no need. Their abilities are unexpected, but it won't change the outcome. Becky Lou Lisha rejected Xianzhang's suggestion decisively. Becky Lou Lisha brought the group to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao's group was having dinner. They were surprised to see Becky Lou Lisha's group. Everyone was shocked and looked at Becky Lou Lisha in confusion. Miss Becky, what's the matter? Familati asked. Nothing, Lou Lisha said seriously. I suddenly feel that betrayal is unforgivable, so I've decided to publicly execute you. Qin Zhao's group's expressions turned strange. Publicly execute them? Everyone looked at Qin Zhao. Clearly he had the most say. Qin Zhao stood up. Very special power. Seems like you've gained a lot. Becky Lou Lisha raised her hand. The ground around them started shaking. Stone pillars rose up behind Qin Zhao's group to form a stone wall, as if to block their way. Now you have nowhere to run. You'll face despair. Becky Lou Lisha glanced at Qin Zhao's group proudly. Becky Lou Lisha saw the surprise in Qin Zhao's eyes. But she wasn't too afraid. She was slightly disappointed, but it didn't matter. The calmer he was now, the more terrified he'd be after witnessing her power. He wasn't afraid now because he hadn't recognized his own power yet. Becky Lou Lisha's group, on the other hand, felt uneasy. Because Becky Lou Lisha's strength was unexpectedly strong, even a little abnormal. This already made them feel very threatened. Becky Lou Lisha had killed one of her subordinates earlier, but it had been a sneak attack. However, at that time it was mostly a sneak attack, so most people felt that if it were them, they would not have been so easily ambushed. But at this moment they felt extremely uneasy. Especially Becky Lou Lisha's personality. It was fine when she was weak. Right now she was already very powerful and could even be said to be terrifying. Their relationship was no longer that of a superior and a subordinate, or that of an employee and an employer. Becky Lou Lisha completely treated herself as a queen. No voices of doubt were allowed to exist. Qin Zhao looked at Becky Lou Lisha calmly. Becky Lou Lisha's power was very strange. It was a little like the inner world but also a little like the outer world. Anyway, Qin Zhao couldn't tell what Becky Lou Lisha's new power was. Also, the origin of her power was unknown. This reminded him of Sacred Michael's power. The true man who split his power into 5 parts. But it didn't matter where Becky Lou Lisha's power came from. With her current strength it would be good if she could use 30% of it. But she didn't know it. But it was no wonder. She didn't even know what power she'd obtained, so how could she understand Qin Zhao? Becky Lou Lisha clenched her fist. The surrounding soil and rocks started gathering toward a point. In a dozen seconds, a huge stone ball with a diameter of almost 30 meters had formed in the air. Everyone stared at the huge stone ball and sighed in admiration. Becky Lou Lisha was proud of her results, but she wasn't very satisfied. She was still working harder to create a bigger and more spectacular stone ball. After her tireless efforts, the stone ball in the sky had already reached 40 meters. I'll give you one chance, Becky Lou Lisha threatened, looking at Qin Zhao. Give me that tree spirit. Qin Zhao smiled but didn't say anything. Becky Lou Lisha understood from Qin Zhao's smile. It was a mocking smile. You asked for it. Becky Lou Lisha let go of her control of the stone ball. The stone ball fell from dozens of meters in the air. Familati and the others covered their heads in fear. They didn't dare to look up. But when the stone ball fell more than 10 meters, it suddenly stopped. Everyone was stunned as they looked at the stone ball in astonishment. Qin Zhao was still looking at Becky Lou Lisha with a smile. Sorry to disappoint you. If that's all you can do, it'll be hard for you to make me yield. You need to work harder. Becky Lou Lisha stared at Qin Zhao in shock. How is that possible? She could create and control the stone ball because she now had the power of the entire island. Under normal circumstances, no one could move the 100-ton stone ball, let alone make it float in the air. However, Qin Zhao had used some unknown method to be able to hover in the air just like him. Of course, she could still see the difference. After all, she could make the stone ball float dozens of meters in the air. But Qin Zhao could only make it float more than 10 meters in the air. This also increased her confidence. Becky Lou Lisha felt that Qin Zhao was indeed powerful. But it wasn't enough to fight against her. You like playing with this thing? Then I'll let you play. The surrounding soil rose into the air again and gathered on the stone ball. Now, Becky Lou Lisha didn't need to split her power to control the stone ball, so she could fill it with soil without restraint. Theoretically, she could even increase the weight of the stone ball infinitely. She wanted to see when Qin Zhao would collapse. Then he would be smashed into meat paste by the overloaded stone ball. Becky Lu Lisha was imagining the scene. She felt that Qin Zhao must be having a hard time. Becky Lu Lisha stared at Qin Zhao seriously, capturing all the changes in his expression. Unfortunately, to her disappointment, Qin Zhao didn't look like he was having a hard time at all. He was definitely pretending. He wanted to trick her. Now that the stone ball's weight had doubled, it was impossible for him to not feel anything. He was forcing himself. Becky Lu Lisha worked even harder at increasing the weight of the stone ball. The diameter of the stone ball increased from 40 to 50, then from 50 to 60. Becky Lu Lisha looked relaxed. The power came from the island anyway. She was just a porter, so she didn't feel any pressure. She also believed that Qin Zhao wouldn't be able to last long. Chapter 3183. The stone ball grew larger and larger. Becky Lu Lisha's expression changed from initial pride to confusion. And now he couldn't believe it. The stone ball's diameter was already more than 100 meters and its weight had increased by more than 10 times. But the ball was still as steady as a mountain, floating above Qin Zhao's head. If that's all, I'm afraid your wish to eliminate me, the traitor, will fail. Qin Zhao smiled at Becky Lu Lisha. Becky Lu Lisha's expression grew even worse. Qin Zhao suddenly raised his hand. Becky Lu Lisha jumped in fright. She thought that Qin Zhao was going to attack. Her subordinates behind her also looked at Qin Zhao nervously. But just then the stone ball suddenly rose into the air. In the blink of an eye, it flew out of sight. Before they could heave a sigh of relief, Qin Zhao said, "This stone ball will be affected by gravity at an altitude of 3 million meters and start accelerating. When it lands, it will reach Mach 10 per second. Do you know what that means?" Everyone's expression changed. They weren't physicists and couldn't calculate the value of the acceleration. But they were certain that if the stone ball landed on the island, they would die for sure. Perhaps the entire island would be destroyed. "You have about 10 minutes to escape." Qin Zhao looked at Becky Lu Lisha. "Miss Becky, do you think eliminating me is more important? Or is escaping more important?" Becky Lu Lisha was panicking inside, but she still looked calm on the surface. "You can't scare me." Becky Lu Lisha looked at Qin Zhao calmly, trying to find some doubt on his face. "I don't know what method you used to make the stone ball disappear, but there's no way you could throw it 3,000 kilometers into the sky. They can't calculate it, but I know how much power is needed to throw it 3,000 kilometers. If you have that much power, you don't need to play tricks like this. You can kill us all directly." Becky Lu Lisha paused, then added, "And most importantly, according to what you said, throwing the stone ball to a height of 3,000 kilometers and then dropping it down vertically, although the power is terrifying, you won't be able to escape. I don't think you will commit suicide, so there's only one possibility. What you did just now was just a smokescreen." Hearing Becky Lu Lisha's words, her men all heaved a sigh of relief. It made sense. If Qin Zhao could really throw the stone ball 3,000 kilometers into the sky, his power would be unbelievably great. If he was really that powerful, all of them combined wouldn't be enough to kill him. Qin Zhao didn't even need to waste time. He could kill them all by himself. Thus, they were certain that Qin Zhao was bluffing. However, Gaia and the others were looking at Becky Lu Lisha with a strange gaze. They knew that Qin Zhao really had that kind of power. Suddenly, Becky Lu Lisha's confident expression froze. She received a warning from the island. Danger. Something was going to fall on the island. Extreme danger. Becky Lu Lisha raised her head and vaguely saw a dark red dot of light dragging a tail across the sky, heading straight for the island they were on. At first, it was still very small, but it was very conspicuous. Other than Becky Lu Lisha, the others slowly noticed the falling meteorite. At this moment, everyone's expression changed drastically. Qin Zhao wasn't joking. There was a hint of a smile on Qin Zhao's face. Becky Lu Lisha gritted her teeth. "Let's go." With that, Becky Lu Lisha turned around and left without any reluctance. Qin Zhao didn't stop them either. "Qin, why didn't you stop them? They must have found the path to the next island or the key. If we want to go there, we need to follow them." Everyone understood. No wonder Qin Zhao hadn't done anything when Becky Lu Lisha provoked him. After leaving with the others, Becky Lu Lisha hurried to the coast. "Boss, what should we do now? If that stone ball falls, we'll all die." "Shut up." Becky Lu Lisha's expression was cold. "Only the traitors will die." Becky Lu Lisha closed her eyes, but she still walked forward. Everyone exchanged glances. Seeing Becky Lu Lisha's strange way of traveling, they were all confused. So, She's using a special spell to find something. There were still people who noticed the reason why Becky Lou Lisha closed her eyes and hurried along. Everyone hurried and followed Becky Lou Lisha closely. Suddenly Becky Lou Lisha opened her eyes. There was a hole in the ground before them. Becky Lou Lisha stood before the hole. It wasn't very big. It was less than 3 meters in diameter, but it was so deep that they couldn't see the bottom. Without hesitation, Becky Lou Lisha stepped forward. With one step, she stepped into the air and fell into the hole. Everyone looked at each other, hesitating. Xianjing thought for a moment and then stepped into the hole. After some hesitation, everyone finally chose to go in. The moment they fell into the hole, they realized that there was light around them. The flowing light wrapped around their bodies and completely enveloped them. They felt that their movements were completely controlled by the light. Apart from the light, they couldn't see anything else. The scene was as beautiful as a painting. It was as if they were standing in a sky full of stars. But this scene didn't last for long. They felt a huge tearing force as if the light was going to tear their bodies apart. Thankfully, they cast a magic shield on themselves before jumping down. The tearing force was strong, but they could still resist it. Then there was the illusion of being upside down and moving backwards and forwards. Under this environment and perception, everyone lost their sense of direction. Time also became blurry. After an unknown amount of time, everyone suddenly felt suffocated. When they opened their eyes again, they realized that they were really suffocating. Because they were actually underwater. They flopped to the surface. Thankfully, the water wasn't deep. It was less than 10 meters deep. Everyone floated to the surface and gasped for air. After getting enough oxygen, they finally had the energy to observe their surroundings. They were at a huge lake surrounded by a forest. The lake was like a huge jewel embedded in the forest. The scenery was breathtakingly beautiful. There were a few unknown animals playing and drinking by the lake. Everyone didn't care about their fatigue. They either swam to the shore or used magic to quickly leave the center of the lake. Chapter 3184. When they reached the shore, they realized that more than half of the people were gone. Becky Lou Lisha's expression was dark. Do the people who jumped into the tunnel after you know what happened? Didn't the missing people follow? No, they did. AI Chili was before me. I remember, and so was Luke. Then why are there so many people? There had been more than 20 people, but now at least 10 were gone. Becky Lou Lisha didn't understand, and the others obviously didn't either. At the same time, a dozen kilometers away, a woman stood up with difficulty. AI Chili's foot was broken. She fell from the sky. Qin Zhao also fell with her. Right now, AI Chili's face was filled with fear. After all, she knew that she definitely couldn't beat Qin Zhao. But Qin Zhao wasn't interested in AI Chili at all. As soon as he landed, he began to observe his surroundings. His little heaven and earth was completely suppressed. This was something that had never happened before. His little heaven and earth had actually been suppressed to a diameter of 10 meters. Qin Zhao tried to spread it out. But every time it spread, an even stronger force would counterattack. Qin Zhao was curious. Where did the force come from and what form did it exist? It could actually suppress his small world. Then he checked his internal world. It wasn't affected. It was still operating normally. This should be the second stop of Treasure Island. But Gaia, Femilati, Old Ank and Robert were all missing. They jumped into the tunnel with him. But there seemed to be a fork in the tunnel. As a result, they were separated the moment they came out. Qin Zhao tried to fly, but the moment he did, another huge force smashed into him, smashing him to the ground again. It wasn't impossible to fly. He just had to withstand the force. Qin Zhao could do it, but the situation was unclear. He didn't want to waste his energy. Qin Zhao glanced at AI Chili, who was looking at him in fear. Seeing that Qin Zhao's attention was on her, the hair on her lower body stood on end. Are you scared of me? Qin Zhao asked calmly. AI Chili didn't reply, but she was screaming crazily in her heart. Isn't this obvious? I'm facing a monster like you and we're enemies. It would be strange if he wasn't afraid. I've never killed a single person. Why are you afraid of me? AI Chili didn't agree with him. Not having killed and being able to kill were two different things. Any creature would be afraid of an existence that could kill them. Everything in human society was built on a sense of security. This was the customary safety contract, which was also the law. Once the law loses its binding force. For example, at this moment, after losing the restraints of the law, AI Chili naturally felt fear. Because humans don't believe in moral restraint. Qin Zhao could easily kill her without anyone noticing. Alright, where's your companion? I mean, where did Becky and Lu Lisha go? Qin Zhao asked. I don't know. I didn't arrive much earlier than you. You arrived a few minutes after I landed. Forget it. Qin Zhao shook his head. Then good luck. Qin Zhao planned to leave, even though he knew that AI Chili's foot was broken and couldn't move easily. However, him staying here would only make her more uneasy. So he decided to leave. Anyway, she wasn't an ordinary person. Even if she couldn't move freely, she could still walk. She should be able to move. But after a few steps, Qin Zhao stopped. Countless small monsters had appeared on the surrounding cliffs, as well as the road in front, behind, left, and right. They weren't big, only the size of a basketball, but there were countless of them. Their bodies were round, with short limbs and a small tail. Their spherical bodies had a large mouth. They didn't have eyes, noses, or ears, only mouths. AI Chili stood up with difficulty. Her face was pale. Obviously, it was impossible for her to deal with these unknown monsters by herself. Whoosh whoosh, the sounds made by these little monsters were very strange. But they didn't have ears, so Qin Zhao didn't know how they communicated. More and more monsters made the same sound. Then they started rolling toward Qin Zhao and AI Kirilenko. Their short little legs looked rather redundant. When they moved, they mostly relied on their round bodies to roll. Moreover, once they started rolling, so did a whole group of them. AI Chili was the first to lose control. She shook her arms, revealing a pair of red and blue energy swords. The small monsters rushed in front of Aikili, who also brandished her two swords. These little monsters were like melons and fruits, easily chopped and chopped by AI Chili. When they were cut open, their bodies didn't spurt out blood and flesh. Instead, they disintegrated like gravel. AI Chili's attacks were very efficient. In the blink of an eye, dozens of monsters were killed. But facing the endless monsters, AI Chili's performance was insignificant. Her performance seemed insignificant. Soon, a small monster broke through Aikili's defense and bit her arm. Tears streamed down AI Chili's face from the pain. She tore off the monster and smashed it away. However, in that short period of time, even more monsters broke through her line of defense. The attack power of these small monsters was relatively weak. But there were too many of them. Qin Zhao waved his hand and many black balls appeared around him. But he immediately realized that the quality of the black balls was far from what they'd been in the past. Creating the black balls relied on the small world to absorb the surrounding matter. But now, the small world had been compressed to less than 10 meters in diameter. This meant that the small world could only absorb pitifully little matter. Moreover, the number of small black balls had also decreased sharply. Creating dozens of small black balls at once was already the limit. Compared to the past, which could easily create tens of thousands, it was thousands of times worse. There was also a weakness, which was the distance the black balls could control. In the past, as long as it was within the small world, the black balls could control the direction at will. But now, Qin Zhao could casually throw the black balls out of the small world. He couldn't control them at will anymore. Of course, even though the quantity, quality, and distance were much worse, it was still more than enough to deal with these monsters. Dozens of black balls shot out and exploded a second time. Thousands of monsters were turned to dust. At the same time, he helped AI Chili out. Qin Zhao glanced at AI Chili. If you don't want to die, you better get closer. AI Chili didn't want to come into contact with Qin Zhao. But now, she had to temporarily rely on Qin Zhao. Chapter 3185. AI Chili saw that she'd only managed to kill 100 or so monsters despite being covered in wounds. But Qin Zhao had casually killed thousands of monsters. She couldn't accept the difference. But what else could she do? Qin Zhao had the power. Plus, she had to accept his protection. Qin Zhao strolled over to AI Chili. Can you walk by yourself? AI Chili's ankle had been broken, but she could endure the pain and walk around. Yes, as long as you don't go too fast, AI Chili said. Then follow me. Qin Zhao waved his hand again and thousands of small monsters were destroyed. However, these thousands of monsters were nothing compared to the total number of monsters in the world. At first, AI Chili was worried that Qin Zhao wouldn't be able to keep going. With Qin Zhao's method, he could easily use ultimate moves. It was indeed a shocking sight, and its lethality was also very great. In a short while, he'd killed almost 100,000 monsters. But AI Chili stopped worrying after a while. Because Qin Zhao used ultimate moves too easily, he released them as he walked. A few dozens, hundreds of ultimate moves. It was as if they were free. The ground had completely changed along the way. She felt that Qin Zhao was hiding a fully armed army on him. And one that had unlimited ammo too. But she didn't know if it was just her imagination. AI Chili kept feeling that there were more and more monsters around. This made her doubt whether these little monsters could be killed all at once. Mr. Chin, why don't we change our route? The number of these monsters hasn't decreased at all since we started walking down this path. Why should it decrease? I purposely chose this path. Huh? What? Because there are more monsters here. You? AI Chili was speechless. She really didn't understand what Qin Zhao was trying to do. Why do you have to find the direction with more monsters? I want to see where they come from, Qin Zhao said honestly. Qin Zhao was suspicious of the monsters' origins. They shouldn't be normal life forms. At least not the life forms Qin Zhao knew. Qin Zhao and AI Chili walked for almost an hour. The monsters around them could no longer be described with numbers. It was impossible to count them, and the small monsters could only be described as a tide. That's right, it was a tide. The small monsters were piled up together and there was no space on the ground at all. Their movements were completely linked. If one of them moved, all of them would move. AI Chili was pale with fright. These small monsters were individually very weak. But when the number reached such a level, it was impossible. All individual flaws and weaknesses become insignificant. Their numbers would make up for everything. Qin Zhao formed a dark red neutron star. Although the power of the dark red neutron star was not as strong as it was in its normal state. However, it was still extremely lethal to these small monsters. Bang! AI Chili was thrown to the ground by the shockwave. As for the small monsters that were like a tidal wave, they were all dead or injured. When AI Kelly looked again, all that was left on the ground was a large pit of lava that had yet to cool down. The ground at the center of the explosion had already melted. With a calm expression, Qin Zhao said, "Keep going." However, it did not take long before more small monsters gathered over. Akili was close to despair. Anyone would be helpless in such a situation. AI Kelly looked at Qin Zhao, but Qin Zhao was still indifferent. Another dark red neutron star exploded in the center of the small monsters. It had the same effect. Hundreds of thousands of small monsters were wiped out by the explosion. AI Kelly had gone from shock to numbness. The big move at the beginning seemed to be just a normal attack. This was probably the real big move. But Qin Zhao could actually use it twice in a row. AI Kelly thought. But not long after, Qin Zhao used it for the third and fourth time. Suddenly, a thought popped up in AI Kelly's head. This kind of attack couldn't be one of his normal attacks, right? Qin Zhao did not stop to answer AI Kelly's question. They came to a huge canyon. AI Kelly opened her mouth and stared ahead in shock. She was not shocked by the huge canyon. Instead, she was shocked by the piles of small monsters in the canyon. The canyon was about 100 meters tall and dozens of meters wide. It was filled with small monsters. 10 million? It was probably 10 times more. There were too many. Large numbers of small monsters surged out of the canyon. There was no way the ecology of this island could support so many small monsters. So, Qin Zhao was even more certain of his guess. They were not normal creatures. Qin Zhao clenched his fists. AI Kelly felt her scalp go numb. Was Qin Zhao planning to attack the dense crowd of small monsters directly? Would it cause a chain reaction? If so many small monsters surged over, even Qin Zhao would not be able to handle it, right? But Qin Zhao clearly did not have AI Kelly's worries. Mr. Qin, don't you think we should think about it carefully? So many small monsters. It's too dangerous. No? You're the only one in danger, Qin Zhao said calmly. AI Kelly opened her mouth, unable to speak for a long time. Forget it. Let this asterisk shoal die. AI Kelly knew that she could not persuade Qin Zhao. AI Kelly saw that Qin Zhao's body was dyed black. It was filled with an ominous and disturbing color. The next moment, Qin Zhao swung his fists. Countless fist shadows flew toward the canyon. In that instant, the earth shook and the sky cracked. Each fist shadow was filled with boundless destructive power. Each fist landing on the pile of small monsters was like hitting tofu pudding. The small monsters were sent flying everywhere. The walls on both sides of the canyon were smashed into pieces. AI Kelly opened her mouth wide, her expression completely frozen. She stared at Qin Zhao dumbfounded. Was he even human? Qin Zhao was still expressionless, but the number of small monsters in the canyon was beyond his imagination. After the fist shadows landed on the pile of small monsters, they passed through hundreds of meters, but they still did not reach the end. The entire canyon was probably more than 10 kilometers long. If the entire canyon was completely filled with little monsters, there would probably be more than 10 billion little monsters here. Even Qin Zhao was shocked by this shocking number. Of course, the number of small monsters was shocking. But they were individually determined. No matter how many of them there were, they could not threaten Qinzhao. Punch after punch, Qinzhao killed who knew how many small monsters. But there was no obvious decrease in the number of small monsters in the canyon. Qinzhao stopped punching. Instead, he used dark lava to pour into the canyon. The dark lava transformed into countless blades, madly killing the small monsters. But even the dark magma couldn't effectively kill these little monsters. AI Kelly had long been stunned by Qinzhao's terrifying destructive power. Chapter 3186. Qinzhao was a monster through and through. She vaguely understood why old Ankh and Robert had chosen to stand on Qinzhao's side. They definitely knew about Qinzhao's background. That was why they were so determined to stand on Qinzhao's side. If Becky Lou Lisha had led them into a conflict with Qinzhao, if Qinzhao was really determined to eliminate them, in that case it was very likely that they would be completely annihilated. There was no second possibility. But she was also confused. Qinzhao had the ability to easily eliminate all of them. Why didn't he do that? Don't talk about morals or laws. Not many people who would come with Becky Lou Lisha would follow the law. Qinzhao seemed to be annoyed by this meaningless battle. If the small world could operate freely, Qinzhao directly used a dark red neutron star at full power. In the blink of an eye, he could clear all the small monsters in the canyon in front of him, and he could even flatten the entire canyon. But Qinzhao's small world was completely suppressed. Many moves attached to the small world were weakened. For example, the dark red neutron star and normal neutron star. Qinzhao used the 5th level of the primordial regression technique. The moment Qinzhao used his full power, the small world was also released. The strange suppressive power also disintegrated. Shock flashed in Aikili's eyes. Qinzhao suddenly felt her hair stand on end. It was almost an instinctive feeling. She felt like she was sitting on a pile of bombs. This was a very bad feeling. Qinzhao raised his arm and pointed his palm in the direction of the canyon. The next moment, a terrifying suction force appeared in the sky above the canyon. Rocks, dust, air, and monsters were all torn apart by the terrifying suction force. Aikili couldn't even stand steadily. She was almost pulled into the air by the suction force. Qinzhao grabbed Aikili with one hand. Only then did Aikili stand still. She looked above the canyon. The matter that was gathered to a point by the suction force didn't get bigger and bigger. It seemed like no matter how many things gathered, there was only one point. More and more matter was sucked in. The monsters piled up in the canyon below were sucked into the air like a flood, merging into that point. The canyon that had been full of monsters was shrinking at a visible rate. Moreover, the canyon was getting bigger and bigger and a lot of rocks were being sucked away. Finally, a stone platform appeared in the canyon. On the stone platform was a basketball-sized emerald pearl. Just like the red orb hidden in the depths of the Medusa's cave on the first island. At this moment, a figure flashed past. Becky Lou Lisha appeared out of nowhere and dashed towards the emerald orb. At the same time he shouted, "Stop him!" AI Chili's expression was a little strange. Block Qinzhao? Becky Lou Lisha's men? Those people could also tell that Qinzhao was very strong. If they fought with Qinzhao, it would be difficult for them to win even if they all attacked together. So, he was only a few meters away from Qinzhao, blocking his way. Becky Lou Lisha held the emerald pearl tightly in her hands. AI Chili glanced at Qinzhao. Qinzhao didn't seem to plan on stopping Becky Lou Lisha from gaining control of the island. Becky Lou Lisha was very nervous. She had followed that feeling all the way here. Coincidentally, Qinzhao was present. She was afraid that Qinzhao would also try to snatch control of the emerald pearl from her. She originally thought that no one would be faster than her. The little monsters along the way did not attack her at all. Perhaps it was because she had the aura of the first island. She also felt that the aura of these little monsters was very familiar. Becky Lou Lisha looked behind her. His subordinates didn't attack Qinzhao. No, more accurately, Qinzhao didn't fight with her subordinates. He just stood there and looked at her with a strange expression. He doesn't know what he's doing? In other words, he was confident that even if he gained control of the island, he would not be able to do so. Even I can't defeat him? Well, in theory that was indeed the case. Becky Lou Lisha glared at Aikilei, then retracted her attention and focused on sending her mana into the emerald pearl. AI Chili was helpless. It seemed that she had become a member of Qinzhao's faction. She knew that it didn't matter if she betrayed Becky Lurisa or not. With her narrow-minded personality, she would definitely not tolerate him. What Becky Lou Lisha worried about for a long time did not happen. Qinzhao didn't stop her from taking control of the island. After Becky Lou Lisha gained control of the island, she didn't know what to do. She found that her strength had increased. This made her eager to give it a try. He wanted to challenge Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao could guess Becky Lurisa's intentions. He just glanced at Becky Lulisha casually. "If you attack me again you will die." Becky Lulisha's expression was cold. She finally calmed down, even though she felt that she had become stronger. But he still wasn't confident he could defeat Qin Zhao. Thus, he temporarily suppressed his hatred and waited for the right time to take revenge. "Let's go." Becky Lurisa left with her men. Ai Chili glanced at Becky Lulisha and the others who were leaving. She could clearly feel that Becky Lulisha had become stronger again. If she could feel it, there was no reason Qin Zhao couldn't. "Why did you let her obtain control over the Emerald Pearl? You should understand. You made her stronger, and with Becky Lulisha's personality, she won't resolve the grudge between you and her. As long as she becomes strong enough, she will take revenge on you." "Of course I know." Qin Zhao shrugged. "Then why did you—" "I need a guide to the next stop." "She's a good choice." "Even if you need a guide, you don't need to choose your enemy, right?" Ai Chili was even more confused. There was no reason Qin Zhao didn't know such a simple logic. "Even if you choose me to control it, it's better than her. At least I won't take revenge on you." "Ha! Do you think that thing is good? Do you think it will give you great power out of nowhere? The world is fair. When you gain something you will also lose something. Even if I lose something it'll be worth it for such great power. What if it's your self-awareness?" Ai Chili was shocked. "What? Self-awareness? The power she received isn't a gift. It's just a loan. If she gathers all the power, it'll be the moment she loses herself." Chapter 3187. Ai Chili frowned. She felt that Qin Zhao was planning something too. She was even more terrified now, more so than before. She knew the difference between her and Qin Zhao very well. Qin Zhao's plan was definitely not something she could participate in. She had no choice but to follow Qin Zhao now. If anything went wrong she would die for sure. Qin Zhao put away the normalizing technique. The pressure came from all directions again. The small world was compressed and shrunk again. Just then a huge black shadow fell from the sky. Qin Zhao looked up. It was Gaia in her dragon form. Old Ankh, Robert and Famirati were on Gaia's back. It seemed that they had to hide in the sky to avoid the small monsters. "Gaia, how did you find us?" Qin Zhao asked. Logically speaking, if his small world was being suppressed, their senses would be greatly restricted too. "Of course. You made such a big commotion here. Even a blind person can see what's going on here." Gaia rolled her eyes. "Oh, you can fly?" Gaia looked at Qin Zhao with a strange expression. "I can fly in my dragon form. What's so strange about that?" She even suspected that Qin Zhao was an imposter. How could he ask such a stupid question? Qin Zhao scratched his head. The suppression couldn't just be directed at him, right? "You guys aren't being suppressed by the island? Are you?" Gaia looked back at the others. "Do you feel suppressed?" "Not at all." All three of them gave the same answer. Qin Zhao looked at Ai Chili. "Do you feel suppressed?" "No." Ai Chili also answered the same. "Strange, then why am I the only one being suppressed?" Ai Chili was speechless. "Is this your strength after being suppressed? Feels like you're going to explode soon." Qin Zhao was depressed, not because he was being suppressed but because he was being targeted. Being targeted for no reason, no one would be happy about it. If everyone was suffering, Qin Zhao would feel much better. But now Qin Zhao was the only one suffering. He felt that it was unfair. "What's that?" Gaia pointed at the emerald pearl in the center of the valley. At this time, the small monsters began to appear again. They had already gathered on the canyon floor. In less than an hour, the small monsters would once again fill the entire canyon. Qin Zhao started again, clearing out the small monsters that he had just accumulated. "That thing is controlling this island. I don't know what it is exactly." Qin Zhao walked up to check the emerald pearl. "Can you tell what it's made of?" "Crystal? It doesn't seem like it. The echo is crisper and it seems to be very hard." Gaia knocked hard on the emerald pearl, but it was not damaged at all. "Old crystal? It's also not." Everyone touched it and knocked it, but they couldn't figure out what this emerald pearl was made of. Qin Zhao reached out and squeezed hard. Cracks instantly appeared on the emerald pearl. Everyone stared at Qin Zhao in shock. "It's indeed very hard," Qin Zhao said honestly. Everyone was speechless. How could you say such a thing after crushing it? They had no idea how much strength Qin Zhao had used to crack the emerald pearl. In terms of strength, it would not be an exaggeration to say that it could split mountains and split seas. Budweiser at this moment the cracks actually healed up. Not long after the crack disappeared. It can actually repair itself. Qin Zhao was somewhat surprised. He felt that the moment it repaired itself, the emerald pearl was filled with thick life energy. This emerald pearl was definitely not a living thing. Life force was something that only living beings possessed. Setting aside the composition of this emerald pearl, where did the life energy come from? Qin Zhao held the emerald pearl with both hands, wanting to pull it off the stone platform. However, the combination of the pearl and the stone platform was stronger than he had imagined. Qin Zhao increased his strength. The pearl and the stone platform still did not move at all. Clearly, Qin Zhao would not admit defeat so easily. He increased his strength again. Slowly, the ground began to shake more and more violently. Qin Zhao increased his strength again. Just then, everyone was forced back by Qin Zhao's aura. Qin Zhao's body emitted a heavy pressure. Everyone found it difficult to even breathe. The ground under Qin Zhao's feet cracked. Qin Zhao's strength was still increasing. The surrounding canyon walls seemed to be torn apart by some power. This power was still wreaking havoc on the entire island. The ground was torn apart and the entire island was in a state of turmoil. It seemed like it could sink at any moment. Everyone was a bit frightened. Qin Zhao's battle with the emerald pearl continued. The island was on the verge of collapsing at any moment. At the same time, Becky Lu Lisha and the others at the edge of the island also noticed the drastic changes. Especially Becky Lu Lisha, she felt it the most. Originally, she had just obtained the power of the small island and was feeling a little high-spirited. But at this moment, the power that was originally supporting her suddenly weakened. She could clearly feel that the island was under some kind of attack. It was Qin Zhao. It had to be him. Becky Lu Lisha immediately blamed Qin Zhao for what had happened on the island. However, her guess was not wrong. The violent shaking grew stronger. Right now, everyone felt like they were bugs in a bottle that was being shaken by a huge hand. Qin, stop. Look. Gaia shrieked. You'll kill us all? The cracked ground was already spewing out scorching lava. Qin Zhao looked back at everyone. Right now, Gaia and the others were all lying on the ground in pain. The surrounding terrain had completely changed. The canyon had disappeared, and the broken ground was filled with boiling magma. Qin Zhao finally gave up on the idea of taking the pearl away. Unless he risked everyone else's lives. Qin Zhao could clearly feel that the bottom of the pearl was connected to something. When he tried to lift the emerald pearl, a huge force appeared below the emerald pearl. It kept pouring out the pearl to fight against Qin Zhao. That force was connected to the entire island. Qin Zhao was fighting against the pearl, but in reality he was fighting against the entire island. Mr. Qin, there's an underground tunnel. Akili discovered a crack in the ground. Qin Zhao thought for a moment and still entered the tunnel. The others followed. There were broken walls everywhere in the tunnel. Many places had completely collapsed. However, Qin Zhao opened a path with brute force. Everything in his way, be it rocks or earth, was destroyed. Chapter 3188. Not long after, a huge heart appeared in front of everyone. The huge heart was wrapped in a layer of rock. But it was still beating vigorously. Everyone stared in awe at the gigantic heart in front of them. It was probably more than 500 meters in diameter and it hung in the air. What did a heart with a diameter of 500 meters mean? It was about the length of 5 soccer fields. It wasn't a heart at all. It was more like a mountain. Every heartbeat was like a clap of thunder. What kind of heart is this? Qin Zhao narrowed his eyes and looked at the huge heart. Here Qin Zhao felt even more suppressed. He even felt like he couldn't move. The huge heart was resisting him. They both knew each other's existence and strength. Of course, this heart alone was clearly not enough to stop Qin Zhao. Ignoring the giant heart's resistance, Qin Zhao strode forward firmly and forcefully. He walked toward the huge heart. Suddenly the surroundings changed. The original cave had disappeared and turned into a vast plain. Qin Zhao grabbed a handful of grass and rubbed it. He rubbed it hard. It's real, not an illusion? Or could it be that the illusions could even deceive his own senses? The others also stared at the scene in shock. They were also wondering if it was real or an illusion. If it wasn't an illusion, how did they get here? Teleportation? It wasn't teleportation. At least Qin Zhao knew what teleportation felt like. Plus, he didn't think that it could teleport him to a strange place like this. Qin Zhao tossed out a small black ball. The black ball didn't explode until it flew more than 10 kilometers away. Strange, this really wasn't the cave. The cave with the huge heart was big, but it was only a few hundred meters in diameter. Where exactly is this? Gaia asked. Qin Zhao looked into the distance. There was a cloud of dust on the horizon of the plain. Something seemed to be sweeping toward them. Little monster? Everyone looked at the thing that had rolled out. They could see it clearly now. But, when that thing came closer and closer, they realized that the little monster wasn't small. The closer they got, the bigger the monster became. Apart from the same appearance, it was tens of thousands of times bigger. There was also a shocking amount of it, although it didn't fill up the entire canyon like when they were in the canyon. However, at this moment, these little monsters were spread across the entire horizon of the plain. It was as if it wanted to cover the entire vast plain. They still charged fearlessly toward Qin Zhao's group. Everyone looked worried and looked at Qin Zhao at the same time. Qin Zhao stood at the very front, unmoving. However, Qin Zhao's gaze wasn't on the incoming horde of monsters. Qin Zhao kept looking up, down, left and right as if he was searching for something. Suddenly he turned around. No one understood why Qin Zhao would turn around now. The enemy was right in front. You're not thinking of escaping, are you? Qin Zhao lifted his arm and pointed at the crowd. Scale literature, move aside. The crowd didn't understand Qin Zhao's intentions, but they still listened to him and made way. A small black ball shot out in their direction. Pop! The little black ball flew hundreds of meters away. The entire world shattered like a mirror. After the broken module fell, everyone found that the environment had changed back to the original cave. But when they looked again, there was only a stone shell left of the giant heart. The heart itself was gone. What's going on? It ran away. Qin Zhao shrugged, a bit disappointed and helpless. That place just now, was that an illusion? No, that's a real place, Qin Zhao said. An alternate world? We were teleported to an alternate world? It's not really an alternate world. Qin Zhao didn't say much. They wouldn't understand even if he explained. That wasn't an alternate world. After all, even if someone could really teleport them to an alternate world, it was impossible that they didn't notice it at all. That wasn't teleportation at all. It was covering. Someone had used a world to cover the original world. There was only one possibility to do this, covering the real world with an inner world. It was just like how Qin Zhao could release his inner world. That was a type of release. However, that existence's inner world was completely different from Qin Zhao's. Qin Zhao's inner world was a world of flames. That existence's inner world was a vast plain. But that existence's inner world wasn't complete. Half of it was an inner world that could be passed off as real, while the other half was an illusion. In other words, the one behind them was actually fake. After the existence's inner world covered them, everyone doubted whether that world was real. Even Qin Zhao was the same. So, at the start, everyone used their own methods to test it. Later on, Qin Zhao found a loophole. All the movements in that world appeared in front of them. The direction of the monsters, the direction of the wind, the direction of the light, and the density of the spiritual qi were all in that direction. Behind them there were no changes at all. It felt almost the same as when they were in the cave. Qin Zhao started to doubt it, which was why he tested it a second time. As expected, Qin Zhao found that the world they were in was half real and half fake. However, that existence didn't want to defeat Qin Zhao. His main goal was to stall for time and let himself, or rather, let his heart escape. He had to admit that he succeeded. He only managed to stall for a short while. In less than 10 minutes, the heart escaped. Don't ask how the heart escaped. A heart that was hundreds of meters long was already in existence that defied common sense. So, it was even more unsurprising that the heart could escape on its own. Qin Zhao was somewhat disappointed. His carelessness had let the heart escape. However, before the first confrontation, who would have thought that a heart could have so many tricks up its sleeve? Qin Zhao had thought that a mere heart was like meat on the chopping board. Even if it had unimaginable power, it couldn't even be crushed with one hand. But in the end, he was humiliated in front of everyone and the heart escaped. Just then, the empty shell of the heart suddenly changed shape and turned into a giant rock beast. Boom. One strike. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The giant rock beast was formed from the shallow power left behind by the heart. Whether it was to the heart or to Qin Zhao, it was too small and insignificant. It didn't even have the right to stall for time. Everyone was dazed. When they saw Qin Zhao defeat the giant rock beast with one strike, they found it hard to accept, but it was reasonable. They'd hoped for an earth-shattering battle, but it didn't happen. Chapter 3189. When everyone returned to the ground, they suddenly saw a huge shadow on the surface of the sea amidst the storm. It's the third island. Qin Zhao's vision was the best. He could see the island in the storm at first glance. Doesn't the third island need a special path? Qinzhao shrugged. Even if I reveal my location, I need a special path. I can't fly now. Even if Gaia transforms into her dragon form, she can't pass through the stormy sea. I can do it, Gaia said stubbornly. She had her own stubbornness. Qinzhao shrugged. His senses were suppressed to the limit, but he could still sense the violent aura in the sea ahead. It wasn't a normal storm. It was like the entire world was filled with all kinds of magic. A normal person would be torn to pieces if they went near the edge. Even spiritualists couldn't go in. Moreover, the distance between the third island and the second island was very large. One could vaguely see the third island. In reality, the two were thousands of kilometers apart. With Gaia's power, she couldn't even cross 1/10 of the distance. Only Qinzhao could force his way through the stormy sea. But in that environment, even he couldn't protect the others. Gaia didn't know the situation. If she did, she wouldn't have lied. Let's go find a guide. The guide Qinzhao was talking about was naturally Becky Lu Lisha. Mr. Qin, did you do something to Becky Lu Lisha? Qinzhao rolled his eyes. Isn't that obvious? Actually, at the first island, Qinzhao had secretly thrown a small puddle of dark lava on Becky Lu Lisha. So, Qinzhao basically knew Becky Lu Lisha's movements. As long as Qinzhao sensed the puddle of dark lava, then Qinzhao would know Becky Lu Lisha's route on the island. Becky Lu Lisha basically couldn't sense the existence of the dark lava. But even if she did, she couldn't do anything about it. Once you touched that thing, you'd be stuck to it. It wouldn't be easy to get rid of it. Following the path of the dark lava, Qinzhao found the transportation point to the third stop. They entered the passage and came to the third stop. This time they weren't forcefully separated. When everyone arrived at the third island, they habitually began to inspect their surroundings. Unlike the first two islands, the environment of the third island was extremely harsh. The sun in the sky was very low and there were two of them. That was definitely not the sun in the conventional sense. They were two huge fireballs. As a result, the temperature on the island is very high. However, what was surprising was that the island was still covered in plants despite the high temperature. However, the plants that grew on this island were all red in color. Whether it was the trees or the flowers and plants, almost all of them had red skin. The moment Qinzhao picked up a bunch of flowers, he felt the terrifying energy in them. They exploded in his hands. Qinzhao's actions were like pulling the fuse of dynamite. All the plants within a 10-meter radius began to explode. This turn of events startled everyone. They hurriedly used their own defensive methods. Boom, boom, boom. Fortunately, everyone reacted in time. Qinzhao also extended a helping hand and protected everyone. Therefore, no one was injured. However, after knowing that these plants would explode when they were hurt, everyone's mood was not so good. This almost made it difficult for them to move. After all, in an area filled with plants, stepping on a plant could cause all the surrounding plants to explode. Moreover, these plants were terrifyingly powerful and there were many of them. Moving around here was like walking on a battlefield filled with landmines. Who knew when a large firework would come? Qinzhao was also helpless. He could only take one step at a time. You guys stand here first. I'll go and clear a safe path. He couldn't help it. Qinzhao felt an even stronger suppression on the island. Of course, his small world had already been suppressed to 10 meters. No matter how strong the suppression was, it wouldn't make Qinzhao's small world smaller. After all, no one in this world could take away Qinzhao's small world. Qinzhao went forward and detonated the nearby plants first. The others kept their distance and only went forward after the explosions were over. If it was a normal person, they would probably be smashed into pieces after walking a few meters. This environment was almost unsolvable for normal people. These plants seemed to belong to the dragon blood family, Gaia said. Qinzhao turned around and looked at Gaia. Do you recognize these plants? Dragon blood is a very general term. It doesn't refer to a single plant. Usually, it refers to a plant that has the blood of a dragon or fire elemental magical beast stained with it. The plant absorbs the blood and then grows abnormally, Gaia said. But dragon blood plants need a very harsh environment to grow. They usually only grow near volcanoes because they need to absorb large amounts of fire elemental energy. Are these magic materials? Qinzhao asked. These plants can't be harvested, right? They'll explode if they are harvested. It's not that they can't be harvested. They absorb large amounts of fire elemental energy, so the plants contain large amounts of fire elemental energy. Under normal circumstances, as long as the balance of the fire elemental energy is broken, there'll be a violent explosion. But at night, the plants' bodies will start to shrink and stabilize. Under these circumstances, there won't be an explosion. Qin Zhao suddenly thought of an idea. Dark lava spread out and covered the plants in front of him. Qin Zhao created a large shadowy area. Under the shadow, the branches and leaves of the plants started to shrink, just like Starbeck. Qin Zhao carefully picked up a small red plant with dark lava. As expected, there was no explosion. Qin, after harvesting, don't let these plants see the light. Keep them in a dark place. These weren't problems. Qin Zhao started harvesting the plants along the way with dark lava. A moment later, he'd harvested thousands of plants. Are these plants valuable? There has always been a shortage of Dracaena plants on the market. These flowers and plants are sold by the kilogram, and each kilogram can be sold for about $10,000. If it's those medium-sized trees, each one is estimated to be about $200,000. There are also some large plants that are very expensive. There have been several records of them being sold for millions of dollars. Before Qin Zhao, the dragon blood plants that covered the entire mountain were probably a huge source of income. Qin Zhao didn't waste any. He spread dark lava even more. After harvesting them, he stored them in dark lava. Chapter 3190. Everyone was drooling with envy. But apart from drooling, they couldn't snatch it or ask Qin Zhao for a share. What a joke. How could they ask Qin Zhao for a share? Not to mention their abilities, they couldn't even block one of Qin Zhao's ultimate moves even if they combined forces. When Qin Zhao was collecting the dragon blood plants, they didn't even put in any effort. How could they ask Qin Zhao for a share? At the same time, on the other side of the island, Becky Lu Lisha frowned. Those guys are following us again. Xianzheng, are you sure you erased all traces before we entered the tunnel? I'm sure. I used a dust concealment spell to erase our auras for at least 30 minutes. No one can follow us. But why can they still follow us less than 10 minutes after we entered the third island? Becky Lu Lisha asked, dissatisfied. Unless they did something to one of us, Xianzheng said. Otherwise, I can't think of any other possibility. Becky Lu Lisha's expression darkened. She felt that Xianzheng's guess was probably correct. This was the only possibility that Qin Zhao and the others could keep up with their movements. Everyone check yourselves, Becky Lu Lisha urged. See if anyone was enchanted. Everyone started checking themselves. But no matter how they checked, they didn't find any traces of being enchanted. They were all experts in this field, so they were naturally extra careful. Very few people could be enchanted without anyone noticing. You didn't find it? Everyone shook their heads. Boss, do you think it's possible that you? To everyone, Becky Lu Lisha was the most likely. Because she was the mediocre twin, her knowledge of magic was far inferior to the others. So, if someone chose to cast a tracking spell on one of them, Becky Lu Lisha was undoubtedly the most suitable. I've already checked myself. I didn't find any traces. Xianzheng didn't continue suspecting that Becky Lu Lisha had been enchanted. Instead, he changed his train of thought. Maybe it's not magic but some kind of tracking object? Becky Lu Lisha suddenly fell into deep thought. After a while, she pulled open her sleeve. Look, what's this? There was a small patch of black under Becky Lu Lisha's wrist. This is a birthmark? Becky Lu Lisha shook her head. It was on the first island. I was holding onto a tree and my wrist was scratched by the bark. That's how the black spot appeared. I thought I was poisoned and even asked Corella to take a look. He said it wasn't poisoned but a bruise. Xianzheng looked for a long time but could not find anything suspicious. After thinking for a while, he said, how about we cut the skin and see if we can squeeze out the extravasated blood? Sure. Becky Lu Lisha nodded and agreed to Xianzheng's suggestion. You do it yourself. Compared to the dissension in the team, Lu Lisha trusted Xian more because he had a grudge against Qin Zhao and the others. Xianzheng used a knife to cut open the skin on Becky Lu Lisha's wrist and was about to squeeze out the blood. Suddenly, the black extravasated blood flowed upward without warning. It was as if it had life and consciousness. 000 literature. Becky Lu Lisha and Xianzheng's expressions changed. Xianzheng reacted quickly and immediately grabbed the joints of Becky Lu Lisha's arm. He wanted to stop the black substance from moving upward. However, the black substance gradually dissipated and the black spot could no longer be seen on the skin. Just then, Becky Lu Lisha's expression became even more panicked. I can feel it flowing into my body through the blood vessels in my arm. Damn. Think of something. Xianzheng's expression was serious. I'll try to use an essence spell to get rid of that thing. Xianzheng cast a Buddhist bright light seal on Becky Lu Lisha. Becky Lu Lisha felt as if her body was burning. The thing had weakened a lot, but it was not completely removed. It was also very cunning. It was swimming toward Becky Lou Leisha's heart. The next moment, Becky Lou Leisha clearly felt her heart twitch. The thing was actually stuck to her heart. How is it? Damn, it's on my heart now. Keep using that spell and get rid of it. Xian Zheng's expression darkened. Becky Lou Leisha panicked. What's wrong? Why aren't you doing it? The Grand Light Seal has a certain lethality to the human body's abdomen. It would be fine if it was in other places or blood vessels, but if it's in the heart. If I continue to use the Grand Light Seal, it will cause certain damage to your heart. Becky Lou Leisha gritted her teeth and looked at Xian Zheng. Is there no other way? Boss, if you can control your power well, you can try using your own power to protect your heart. Then I can freely cast the spell. How do I do that? Form a membrane with magic and stick it to the heart. This is more complicated and detailed. But this method was clearly too complicated for Becky Lou Leisha. Becky Lou Leisha had power that far surpassed others. But her control of power was like a primary school student. 1 + 1 might not be a problem for her. However, a complex equation would be too difficult for her. Is there no other way? The active substance isn't strong. Boss, you can try shaking it to death and erasing its activity. Becky Lou Leisha tried using Xian Zheng's method again, but the result was still not satisfactory. Xian Zheng's methods could be easily done by others, but she couldn't do it in a short time. It must be that asterisk shoal. Becky Lou Leisha trembled in anger. This kind of behavior was simply the greatest humiliation to her. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Qin Zhao clearly had the power to kill her and everyone else. But he was playing with her like a cat playing with a mouse. At the same time, she secretly complained that Xian Zheng and his other subordinates were all useless. None of them were Qin Zhao's match. They couldn't even break his little tricks. Although a few of them looked normal, they were gloating in their hearts. Becky Lou Leisha's domineering behavior displeased them. They were happy to see Becky Lou Leisha suffer, but they couldn't help her at all. Becky Lou Leisha obviously knew what they were thinking. At the moment, she was also considering how to get rid of the disloyal ones. Chapter 3191. In the past, Becky Lou Leisha had thought that the betrayal of her subordinates only meant that the leader wasn't capable enough. But when Becky Lou Leisha realized that her subordinates were all traitors, she had a mental breakdown. Especially after Qin Zhao, the traitor, rubbed her a few times. Now she just wanted to kill all the traitors around her. After all, she had one Qin Zhao. She didn't want a second one. One Qin Zhao had already left a serious psychological shadow in her heart. If another one appeared, she would probably explode on the spot. But before that, she needed these traitors to do her a small favor. This was also the reason why she had recruited so many people this time. Of course, she didn't need so many people. She didn't recruit so many people because of their abilities, but just in case. After all, it wasn't a comfortable journey. Dying a few people was within her plans. She was worried that they wouldn't have enough people at the crucial point. So she specially found a few more tools. Unfortunately, if Qin Zhao's group hadn't betrayed her, her plan wouldn't have been worth tens of thousands. Qin Zhao's group's betrayal wasn't within her plan. Now she really regretted recruiting Qin Zhao into her team. Qin Zhao was like a ticking time bomb. Although he'd left the team, his powerful abilities were still a constant threat to Becky Lou Leisha and her plan. Also Qin Zhao's attitude. It wasn't just Qin Zhao's betrayal, but also his unpredictable behavior. It also made Becky Lou Leisha very wary. Becky Lou Leisha rolled down her sleeves and reorganized her emotions. Forget it, Becky Lou Leisha said calmly. Even if that traitor is playing tricks behind my back, he can't stop me. His laughable actions are just a joke. Of course, she tried her best to look nonchalant, but she wasn't that calm inside. Moreover, no one thought that Qin Zhao was really that insignificant. Qin Zhao had proven his abilities many times before. Even though he'd gained control of 2 islands and power, Becky Lou Leisha still wasn't Qin Zhao's match. Follow me. Becky Lou Leisha's team was also surrounded by large numbers of dragon blood plants. Becky Lou Leisha waved her hand. Back off. A shocking scene appeared. The densely packed dragon blood plants in front of them actually took the initiative to retreat. Everyone was surprised. Becky Lou Leisha definitely wasn't using nature magic. Spirit speech magic? It didn't seem like it. Although no one understood Becky Lou Leisha's magic, they all knew that Becky Lou Leisha had cast a spell. However, this solved their problem. These dragon blood plants were very troublesome. Especially on this island. If it was a Dracaena plant that grew in other places, it would not be able to survive. They could wait until nightfall to pick them. But there was no night here. This place was called the Land of Eternal Light. The two suns in the sky did not revolve around the entire world. It would forever occupy the sky above the island. Therefore, these Dracaena plants would endlessly threaten anyone who landed on the island. Stepping on them was like being barbecued in an armory. Now, their biggest problem had disappeared. Becky Lou Lisha easily solved the problem. Everyone followed behind Becky Lou Lisha. She seemed to control the plants effortlessly. He had been using this ability non-stop along the way without any signs of fatigue. 17 Logically speaking, this spell should have consumed a lot of magic power and energy. But Becky Lou Lisha was not tired at all. He didn't know if it was because she had some tricks up her sleeves, or because she was too strong. However, Xian Zheng, who was following behind her, started to feel uneasy. Xian Zheng was a loyal follower of Becky Lou Lisha in this team. But he didn't want to continue. Because he found a big problem. They were walking into a dangerous area. In the words of Huaxiao Feng Shui Master, that was 1,000 machines extinction. 9 out of 10 deaths. Xian Zheng was a Buddhist disciple. But he was a Feng Shui master before he shaved his head and became a monk. So the Feng Shui master he mastered was quite good. Boss, are you sure we're going the right way? Becky Lou Lisha looked back at Xian Zheng. Is there a problem? This path doesn't seem safe. Why don't we change direction? Change direction? Our destination is this direction. No matter which direction we choose, we have to go to the front. Becky Lou Lisha's eyes showed a hint of dissatisfaction. Was even this Baldy going to betray him? Although Xian Zheng hadn't clearly betrayed him. But he was starting to doubt himself. Boss, where are we going? Just follow me. Shut up. Becky Lou Lisha scolded impatiently. I don't want to hear a second voice. Do you understand? Xian Zheng shut his mouth. He regretted his rashness just now. He had forgotten Becky Lou Lisha's personality. She was stubborn and wouldn't listen to his advice at all. Most importantly, after making Becky Lou Lisha annoyed, he didn't try to stop her. Becky Lou Lisha continued forward with a cold expression. Xian Zheng didn't say anything from then on. But he was always on guard along the way. But there weren't any expected dangers along the way. Xian Zheng didn't relax. Instead, he became more worried. The reason why a land of death was called a land of death was because it was too dangerous. If there was no danger after entering Deathlands, it wasn't because there was a problem with the Feng Shui. It was because danger was waiting at the end. This kind of Deathland was the most dangerous. All the dangers were hidden in the center of Deathlands. Once the danger erupted, it would be 100 times more dangerous than a normal Deathland. Becky Lou Lisha finally took the lead and stopped. They were in the middle of two mountains. There was also a river in front of them, blocking their way. Xian Zheng looked up at the two blazing suns above his head. He looked around again. The mountains were heavy and the rivers were endless. This was the center of Deathlands. Even dragon blood plants couldn't survive here. There was nothing here apart from the scorching hot rocks. Xian Zheng tensed up and observed his surroundings vigilantly. Okay, four of you come here, Becky Lou Lisha said. But no one responded to Becky Lou Lisha's order. Becky Lou Lisha looked at everyone. Is no one listening to my orders? Boss, what do you need to do? Xian Zheng asked. Positions. Becky Lou Lisha said calmly, the control center of this island is hidden underground. To show it, we need 4 people to stand in positions and output magic. Chapter 3192. Xian Zheng knew very well that the most dangerous thing in this place was probably the positions that Becky Lou Lisha had requested. Right now, Xian Zheng already regretted standing on Becky Lou Lisha's side. Becky Lou Lisha's mood swings were too hard to please. But Qin Zhao couldn't do anything either. He and Qin Zhao had such a bad relationship. There was almost no chance of reconciliation. Now he couldn't please either side. Becky Lou Lisha looked at everyone, somewhat dissatisfied. Is no one willing to come? No one responded to Becky Lou Lisha's order. Becky Lou Lisha's domineering behavior along the way. The more she forced everyone to obey her, the more uncomfortable it made people feel. That was why everyone was only obeying her on the surface but disobeying her in secret. No, it had already developed into a blatant confrontation. Then I'll call names, Becky Lou Lisha said indifferently. She scanned everyone present. Becky Lou Lisha pointed out 4 people. However, the 4 of them did not step forward. Lugant, Lil, Stacy, Finans, are you rejecting my order? I reject such an impolite request, Lugant said. You're saying my order is an impolite request? Xian Zheng remained silent, but he glanced at Lugant out of the corner of his eye. Lugant seemed to know something. You think I don't know? This is the abyss of death. This place is specially used to seal something, to seal evil with evil. You asked us to stand in 4 directions because you want us to sacrifice to the demons of the 4 directions, right? If we have enough magic power, we can barely survive. But if we don't, the demons will devour our life force. When we satisfy the demons' needs, the seal will be undone. As for what is sealed, I'm afraid only you know. Lugant looked at Becky Lulisha. Am I right? Becky Lulisha? Everyone else was shocked. This was betrayal. They hadn't betrayed Becky Lulisha, but Becky Lulisha had betrayed them. Everyone stared at Becky Lulisha. They needed an explanation. Becky Lulisha was also furious. To her, these people had betrayed her. As you said, I only need a little bit of your mana. Your mana can still be recovered. If you can't even satisfy this little bit of mana, then I can only say that I've found the wrong person. Becky Lulisha was still high and mighty like before. It was as if all of her decisions were natural. And it was this attitude that was the most unbearable. Although they were hired by Becky Lulisha, it didn't mean they had to put their lives in her hands. No matter how righteous you are, it doesn't change the fact that you're trying to sacrifice us, Lugant said firmly. Previously he had wanted to let it go, but now Becky Lulisha had set her sights on him. Moreover, it was blatantly sacrificing them. This was intolerable, and Becky Lulisha did not show any signs of remorse. Instead, it was as if it was a matter of course. It was as if they were the ones at fault, not her. I told you, I don't like people going against my will. Becky Lulisha stared coldly at Lugant and the other 3. You can choose now. Stand on it yourself or I'll throw your corpses on it. Just as the 2 sides were about to fight, a patch of darkness covered their heads. Qin Zhao's group had arrived. As if they were shopping, they strolled over under the cover of the dark lava. Becky Lulisha's expression changed involuntarily. Her subordinates all had different expressions too. Miss Becky Lulisha, what a coincidence. What are you doing? Are you having lunch break? Qin Zhao took the initiative to greet her. Why are you here? Becky Lulisha treated Qin Zhao as a great enemy. She was very sensitive about Qin Zhao's appearance here. Do I need your permission to come here? Are you planning to buy this island? Qin Zhao asked, still nonchalantly. Qin Zhao strolled casually. The dark lava started sweeping the surrounding dragon blood plants again. Becky Lulisha was even more furious at Qin Zhao's underestimation of her. Right now she was like a volcano that was about to erupt. Mr. Qin, this is the abyss of death. There's probably something sealed here, Old Ankh said. We better leave quickly. Really? I love seals. Do you know how to undo them? Old Ankh's expression was unnatural. Clearly he knew how to undo the seal. But he was worried that Qin Zhao would do the same thing as Becky Lulisha. Sacrifice their lives to undo the seal. If you know, then you know. If you don't know, then you don't know. Why are you wasting time? I know, but it's a bit troublesome. How troublesome? Old Ankh explained the method to undo the seal. It was similar to what Lugant had said earlier. I see. Qin Zhao rubbed his chin. The next moment he created 3 clones and stood in 3 different directions. Qin Zhao's real body chose one and stood on it. The next moment, large amounts of black gas appeared in all directions. Oh, you can use clones too, Qin Zhao said, smiling. But the others' expressions were unnatural. Mr. Qin, be careful. The black gas is evil. It's formed by the unclean aura in this area. Just then the dark lava above them suddenly wrapped around the black gas and then merged back into the real body. The black gas kept growing. Every time it was about to condense, the dark lava would swallow it. This went on for a few times. Finally, the ground stopped spewing black gas. Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't think that the seal of the abyss of death could be undone like this. Just then the ground shook slightly. An opening opened in the middle of the 4 directions and a stone platform rose up. There was a blue pearl on the platform. It was similar to the red and green pearls on the previous 2 islands. Becky Lulisha's eyelids twitched. She didn't think that Qin Zhao could undo the seal so easily. Even if she wanted to be the Oriole behind the mantis stalking the cicada, she didn't have enough power. Is this what you're sealing? How disappointing. Qin Zhao shook his head. Miss Becky Lulisha, it's for you. Becky Lulisha looked at Qin Zhao without any joy on her face. She didn't understand what Qin Zhao was planning. Mr. Qin, I think we had some misunderstandings before. I think we can resolve them and work together again. Sorry, I'm not interested in working with a poisonous snake. I'd rather work with a demon. Becky Lulisha's lips trembled in anger. She finally suppressed her anger. Fine, but I still hope that we won't be enemies. Chapter 3193. Not enemies? Be it Qinzhao or Becky Lu Lisha. Neither of them could tolerate each other's existence. Once there was enmity, they were definitely enemies. Their personalities were like that. Either they didn't interact with each other, or once they did, they were either friends or enemies. Because they knew that the other wouldn't just let it go. Just like what Becky Lu Lisha said, even she herself did not believe it. How could Qinzhao believe her? However, Qinzhao had let Becky Lu Lisha control the island twice in a row. This wasn't courtesy anymore. He was giving her benefits. No one would think that it was because Qinzhao was a nice guy. Qinzhao gestured for Becky Lu Lisha to leave. How could Becky Lu Lisha communicate with the blue pearl in front of Qinzhao with peace of mind? She would feel uncomfortable if Qinzhao was around for a second. Looks like Miss Becky Lu Lisha can't even eat with me here. Let's go. Mr. Qin, is it convenient for us to go with you? Lugant asked. If you want to leave, I can help, but if you want to go with me. Sorry, I don't like to go with strangers. Qinzhao had seen Lugant's group and Becky Lu Lisha's argument and tit for tat. However, he couldn't guarantee that it was just a two-man show between Becky Lu Lisha and the others. If he brought a group of people he didn't trust, Qinzhao wouldn't be able to resist killing them. For everyone's convenience, Qinzhao didn't mind opening the door for them. But if they followed him, then forget it. After all, they hadn't chosen a path in the beginning. No one would accept changing their path halfway. Lugant and the others were somewhat disappointed. But Qinzhao's answer was expected. Qinzhao came and left in a hurry. It was as if he had specially come to help Becky Lu Lisha solve her problem. Lugant and the others also left with Qinzhao. It wasn't just the 4 people that Becky Lu Lisha had pointed out earlier who left with Qinzhao. Apart from Xianjing, everyone else had left. Mr. Qin, do you know how to leave here? Lugant asked. Qinzhao looked at everyone and then silently grabbed at the air. There was clearly nothing, but it felt very strong. Qinzhao slowly separated his hands and a spatial crack appeared before everyone. Everyone gasped. Many of them had seen teleportation magic before. However, forcibly tearing space apart was unheard of. This is the way back, Qinzhao said, pointing at the spatial rift. Where does this lead to? Everyone had a look of disbelief on their faces. I don't know. In any case, it leads to a certain corner of Earth. Transportation is so convenient now, Qinzhao said casually. Find a bus and go home. Hurry up. This spatial rift won't last for more than a few minutes. Mr. Qin, my strength might not be worth mentioning in your eyes, but my magic is quite useful. Why don't you let me stay by your side and help you? Lugant said, unwilling to give up. You're right. He still wasn't sure what this place was, but he had a guess in his heart. Lugant, isn't your magic an earth elemental spell? Robert urged. It's not as useful as you say. Hurry up and go home. Mr. Qin doesn't need you. We have enough people. What a joke. The few of them didn't even have enough. If you joined, we'd have to burn some more. Qinzhao took 60% because he was strong enough. Most of the time he was the one taking care of the problems. They were the ones being protected, so they accepted Qinzhao's distribution method. However, they didn't want another person to share their profits. Qinzhao didn't plan on accepting Lugant and the others either. It wasn't because of the distribution of profits. It was because of trust. If a team didn't have basic trust, they'd be like Becky Lu Lisha. If the team split up halfway, they wouldn't be able to play anymore. While they were talking, the spatial rift had already started becoming unstable. You might have one more minute. Maybe you still want to go back to Ms. Becky Lu Lisha. If that's the case, I won't force you. With that, Qinzhao turned and left. The others glanced at Lugant and the others and quickly followed Qinzhao. Mr. Qin, why don't you let them go back directly? I'm afraid they won't leave. I know. I'm leaving to give them a chance, Yi Zichen said. Why did you do that? It'll be interesting to cause trouble for our Ms. Becky Lu Lisha. Those people are strong and knowledgeable. They should be able to cause a lot of trouble for Becky Lu Lisha. Just then, the ground started shaking violently. What's happening now? It should be Ms. Becky Lu Lisha who obtained control of this island. Qin, are you really going to let her keep gaining control over the islands? Including this island, she now has control over 3 islands. She'll become more and more powerful, and the owner of the power she gains will probably be even more powerful. I know. This is also part of my plan. You know who it is? I have a rough idea, Qinzhao said. After I came here, I already guessed a little. Now, I can probably confirm their identity. Who? Qinzhao chuckled, not answering Gaia's question. I wonder if this island still has a heart. What kind of monster's heart is it? So big. Let's go. Miss Becky Lou Leisha has already gone to the next island. Don't you think it's strange? We've passed 3 islands in a row. It feels too smooth, Old Ank said. Of course. Without Mr. Chen's protection, do you think it's easy? Familati rolled his eyes. Perhaps the first or second island would be enough to annihilate all of them. But now they were almost unharmed. This wasn't easy. It was just because Qin Zhao had taken most of the trouble. That was why they had the illusion that it was easy. Following Becky Lou Leisha, the group arrived at the 4th island. But as soon as they came out of the tunnel, they saw someone before them. It was an unfamiliar woman. She wasn't pretty and was a bit plump and muscular. Her skin was dark and she wore linen clothes. The unfamiliar woman sat under a tree and stared straight at the group coming out of the tunnel. Hello, outsiders. 16033853111. Chapter 3194. Everyone was ready to fight. This strange woman gave them the feeling that she was out of place. Her appearance was abrupt, her dressing was abrupt, and the way she looked at them was also abrupt. The woman seemed to know their information. Her eyes seemed to be as if she had expected it. Qin Zhao narrowed his eyes at the woman before him. He knew nothing about this woman. He had no information at all. Qin Zhao had a lot of information. He even knew what existed here. But among all the information, there was no information about this woman at all. She seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Are you here to stop us? Yes. The woman nodded. I hope you can leave. The woman looked at Qin Zhao. Or defeat me. You can try. Qin Zhao looked at the woman calmly. He couldn't tell how strong she was. This was very rare. There was actually someone that Qin Zhao couldn't see through. She looked like a normal woman. She didn't stand out at all. Sorry, I'm not interested in testing you. If we fight, I won't show mercy. Of course, I don't need you to show mercy either. Very confident, the woman said. The strange woman said, those who step into the realm of God are indeed extraordinary, but confidence alone is not enough. The monster at the end of this road has killed a god. Everyone's hearts trembled. Killed a god. What kind of monster was that? Qin Zhao's expression was still calm. The monster you're talking about isn't you, right? That's a bold guess, but I'm not, the woman said. How can you prove that you're not? Because I don't need to be. The woman's body started growing. Her skin also became rough like rocks. Bigger and bigger, 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 100 meters, 1,000 meters, 10,000 meters, all the way to the sky. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. His face was full of disbelief as he looked at the incomparably huge giant in front of him. This wasn't an illusion. It was a real body. The giant bent down. Her face was 1,000 meters wide. Even her eyes were dozens of meters wide. I, the ruler of the earth, the creator of the world, am Gaia. The voice was like a clap of thunder, reverberating in everyone's mind. Even Qin Zhao didn't expect the giant before him to be the legendary Gaia goddess. Qin Zhao subconsciously glanced at Gaia. Of course, it was his friend Gaia, not this giant goddess Gaia. Gaia also looked at Qin Zhao helplessly. Although they were all called Gaia, they were clearly not the same concept. At this time, everyone began to retreat. Not to mention winning, how to fight this thing was a problem. Great goddess Gaia, what is ahead? Old Ank could not help but ask. To be able to make the goddess of Gaia appear in person and stop them from moving forward. There was definitely something incredible up ahead. Why don't you let your leader explain? You should know a lot. Everyone looked at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao said calmly, World snake Jormungandr from Norse mythology, a legendary magical beast that devours the world. Everyone was once again unable to close their mouths. The Olympian goddess Gaia appeared first. And then Jormungandr, the world snake from Norse mythology? This was too exciting. So you do know, goddess Gaia said with certainty. At this moment, the ground shook violently. Even Gaia almost lost her footing. Goddess Gaia suddenly looked into the distance and furrowed her brows, as if something bad had happened. Goddess Gaia, are you guarding Jormungandr? No, it's a seal. I'm a part of the seal, Gaia said. The goddess of Gaia said, in the past, Zeus led the gods into a war with the Aesir gods. The gods were defeated, but at the critical moment, the Aesir gods released Jormungandr. This terrible monster smashed Mount Olympus, causing the Olympians to suffer heavy casualties. Zeus couldn't kill Jormungandr, but he thought of a way, and that was to release Jormungandr into my world. Qin Zhao raised an eyebrow and looked at Gaia. This is your world? Yes, the world I nurtured, Gaia said. In this world I also nurtured countless ancient titans. After the ancient titans failed to fight Zeus for the divine right, they fell into a deep sleep in this world. Jormungandr obtained an unprecedented opportunity here. He started devouring this world. This is his authority. He devoured the sleeping titans of this world. This world used to be an entire continent, but under his devouring, the entire world was almost swallowed by the sea. When I realized the severity of the problem, I could no longer kill him. In the end, I could only use my power to seal him here. Everyone was dumbfounded. They'd thought that Norse mythology and Olympian mythology had nothing to do with each other. They didn't expect there to be such old grudges. Then who won that war? Old Ankh asked. How would I know? Ever since Zeus placed Jormungandr in my world, I fell into chaos. That stupid guy. If he had asked me to help, I could have killed Jormungandr, but he placed him in my world. This caused Jormungandr to continuously grow stronger, even beyond his control. My power was greatly weakened, while Jormungandr kept devouring the titans and my power. Luckily, Jormungandr couldn't devour the power source. Otherwise, everything would have returned to nothingness. No one won, Qin Zhao said. Most of the Olympians have been sealed, along with Mount Olympus. The Asgardians are also close to extinction. Only a portion of the gods are relying on Asgard to survive. Then, Gaia was about to ask for more information. Suddenly the earth shook. Gaia staggered and lost her balance again. But the next moment, a terrifying snakehead burrowed out of the sea. The snakehead was so huge that it was comparable to Gaia's body. It bit the back of Gaia's waist. Gaia also felt pain from the snake's bite. He turned around and grabbed the snake's head, smashing it with his fists. The snakehead tore off a large piece of flesh from Gaia's waist before shrinking back into the sea. Gaia looked at the sea in shock and anger. Damn, why did he come out? Why did he come out? Chapter 3195. That giant snake was Jormungandr, right? Qin Zhao was confused too. Didn't Gaia say that the seal was still there? Plus, she was a part of the seal. She should know best whether the seal had been opened or not. Just then Becky Lulisha appeared. But she was floating in the air. Her twin spirits also appeared with her, and they hovered around her. Gaia stared fiercely at Becky Lulisha and her twins. Jormungandr. How is that possible? Nothing is impossible, the twin suddenly said. The twin spirit suddenly said, 400 years ago that group of humans broke into this place and opened the first seal. You thought that once the first seal was resealed, nothing would happen. In fact, although my body was not released, my soul was able to escape. My soul has been reincarnating for 400 years and has been spreading the legend of Treasure Island to attract adventurers. Gaia was furious. No wonder humans kept breaking in over the past hundreds of years. Isn't that what you're hoping for? Every intruder will break one or two seals and leak a portion of my power. Then you'll use that opportunity to destroy my power. If you do it enough times, you'll destroy me sooner or later, Twin Life said calmly. That's right. This time will be no exception. Gaia said. It's different this time. Remember the last batch of humans? They reached the seventh stop. They didn't break the seal, Gaia said. Yes, they didn't destroy the seal because I was guiding them. Although they suffered heavy casualties under my guidance, they still reached the seventh seal. When I reached the fifth, sixth, and seventh seal, I carefully destroyed some of the seals so that my power wouldn't break through the seal. However, I kept the seal intact so that you wouldn't be able to sense it. Based on your habits, every time an outsider breaks into this place, you would allow them to open the first 3 seals so that you could weaken my power. But this time, when the 3rd seal was opened, I also forcefully opened the last 3 seals. Gaia didn't expect that after scheming against Jormungandr for thousands of years, she would be tricked by Jormungandr. Goddess Gaia's face was twisted with anger. Even so, the 4th seal is still with me. Goddess Gaia's voice suddenly paused as she touched her waist. The twin creatures laughed. Do you understand now? I knew that the 4th seal was not on this island. It was on your body. In the next instant, the surface of the sea was torn apart. A chaos serpent that connected heaven and earth rose from the sea. Jormungandr. Goddess Gaia roared angrily. She pulled up a huge mountain beside her and smashed it towards the chaos python. At this moment, the chaos python opened its mouth and spat out a jet of black water. The huge mountain was directly smashed into pieces by the black water column. The huge water column blasted directly on Goddess Gaia's chest. Goddess Gaia's huge body was blasted away and smashed into the sea dozens of kilometers away. Goddess Gaia's body was so huge that when she collapsed, it set off a monstrous wave. At that moment, the Chaos Python opened its mouth and tried to envelop Qin Zhao and the others. Qin Zhao's dark lava immediately pulled everyone back, pulling them out of the python's mouth. However, the Chaos Python's target was not Qin Zhao's group. It was Becky Lu Lisha and the twin creatures. The next moment, Jormungandr was completely resurrected. Black clouds filled the sky and electric snakes surged. Jormungandr flipped in the lightning. I have reappeared in the world. Now no one can stop me anymore. Everyone felt that it was the end of the world before them. Just then, Goddess Gaia suddenly pounced at Jormungandr. She was tens of thousands of meters tall and was not inferior to Jormungandr at all. Everyone watched the battle between Jormungandr and Goddess Gaia from afar. They were so shocked that they could not close their mouths. They fought fiercely. Storms, lightning, flames and hailstones continuously ravaged the nearby sea and the island that Qin Zhao and the others were on. It seemed that Goddess Gaia had the upper hand. Jormungandr wrapped around Goddess Gaia, but Goddess Gaia grabbed Jormungandr's head and kept punching him with her huge fists. Jormungandr could not fight back at all. Looks like Goddess Gaia is stronger, Gaia said. Jormungandr is going to lose. Everyone else had similar opinions, but Qin Zhao was not so optimistic. Qin, don't you think so? The loser will be Goddess Gaia, Qin Zhao said. What? Don't you think the situation is clear now? Goddess Gaia seems to have the upper hand, but she's in the sea now. She's lost her source of power, Qin Zhao said. What a pitiful deity. She actually lost her source of power in her own world. As soon as Qin Zhao finished speaking, Jormungandr, who was being beaten back, suddenly bit Goddess Gaia's neck and tore off a large piece of flesh. Goddess Gaia staggered back and fell into the sea. She covered her neck in shock. Jormungandr did not chase after her. Instead, he ate with big mouthfuls, enjoying the delicious source of power. In Jormungandr's eyes, Goddess Gaia was the most delicious food. As long as he completely devoured Goddess Gaia, this world would be completely under his control. He would no longer be able to stop her. Everyone turned pale with fright and looked at this scene in disbelief. This was only the beginning of Goddess Gaia's defeat. After Jormungandr devoured that piece of flesh, Goddess Gaia had yet to recover. The injury to her neck was too great. Even she could not bear it. This time, Jormungandr wrapped around Goddess Gaia's body and neck effortlessly. Jormungandr's power increased greatly while Goddess Gaia weakened greatly. This time, Goddess Gaia could not break free from Jormungandr's restraints at all. Jormungandr tore off another piece of flesh from Goddess Gaia's body. At this moment, a green blob emerged from the torn wound on Goddess Gaia's chest and separated from her body. Jormungandr opened his mouth to swallow the green ball. But the next moment, an even faster black shadow flashed by and covered the green ball before Jormungandr could swallow it. Qin Zhao quickly retracted the dark lava and reached out to grab the thing in the green ball. A green key appeared in Qin Zhao's palm. Everyone paled in fear. No one thought that Qin Zhao would not keep a low profile at a time like this. He would even snatch food from Jormungandr's mouth. Qin Zhao did not care about Jormungandr and the others' gazes at all. The green key in his hand was merging with Qin Zhao. Chapter 3196. The green key was similar to the other keys Qin Zhao had obtained in the past. But it was different. Perhaps this key should be called the Ascension Key. It corresponded to the Ascension level. It was a level that was more complete and perfect than the Ascension level that Qin Zhao knew. The green key used an unimaginable method to describe the relationship between the inner world, outer world, body, soul, and magic. Qin Zhao had known and mastered some of it, but there were some things he hadn't thought of at all. It didn't belong to the God system or the cultivation system. It was something common between the two. Qin Zhao had comprehended the ascension state himself, but he was still figuring out everything about it himself. However, the green key saved him all the trouble. It was knowledge and theory that surpassed his knowledge. It was man-made but not by one person. Instead, it was a group of people, an uncountable number of strong people. Just like the blood-colored key Qin Zhao had obtained in the past, it was made with the blood of hundreds of thousands of people. This green key wasn't made with blood but with knowledge. Gaia wasn't in the ascension state before she obtained the green key. So, she couldn't perfectly absorb the knowledge in the green key. She had become an ascension state, but she relied on the key's knowledge instead of her own comprehension. But Qin Zhao was different. This key fused faster and smoother than any other key he'd obtained in the past. It even fused with Qin Zhao. The knowledge perfectly made up for Qin Zhao's shortcomings. Jormungandr glanced at Qin Zhao. He was angry that Qin Zhao dared to steal his meat. But he didn't realize what Qin Zhao had stolen. He was more concerned about Gaia herself now. He retracted his attention and started tearing at Gaia's body again. Gaia was still struggling, but it was all in vain. But she didn't beg or retreat. She knew that there was no retreat or mercy in this war. Jormungandr kept growing stronger while Gaia kept weakening. Qin Zhao didn't participate in this war. He didn't even pay attention. Qin Zhao communicated and fused more comprehensively with the key. Finally, the world collapsed. Gaia's broken body fell on the sea. Jormungandr's body also grew larger, and bone spikes grew all over his body. At this moment, it was the true doomsday serpent. The world was collapsing in its howl. Everyone felt a chill run down their spine. Was this a sign of doomsday? Jormungandr's attention finally fell on Qin Zhao. Human, the woman I devoured had a grudge against you for a long time. Even death could not erase her hatred for you. Jormungandr stared at Qin Zhao. She was once my sole host. As a reward, I will fulfill her last wish. Looks like she asked the wrong person, Qin Zhao said indifferently. Gaia was dead and the world was on the verge of collapse. But at the same time, the pressure on Qin Zhao also disappeared. You don't understand how powerful I am. Jormungandr sneered. Qin Zhao punched Jormungandr's huge body from a few hundred meters away, causing it to fall backward. Everyone's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Qin Zhao's tone was still flat. You don't understand how powerful I am. Jormungandr's huge tail swept toward Qin Zhao. While doing so, Jormungandr's tail ignited with flames. A mountain blocking the way was smashed into pieces. The momentum was too shocking. Everyone behind Qin Zhao felt that this battle was meaningless. But Qin Zhao clearly did not think so. Instead of retreating, Qin Zhao charged toward the huge flaming tail. The flaming tail slapped Qin Zhao. Not only did it not send him flying, but Qin Zhao wrapped his arms around it instead. Holding the tail, Qin Zhao rose into the sky. Jormungandr was stunned for a moment. But before he could react, Qin Zhao had already lifted his entire body. Hundreds of thousands of meters long had long surpassed the clouds. Jormungandr turned around and spat out a black pillar of water at Qin Zhao in the sky. Qin Zhao had been flying up with Jormungandr's tail. But the black pillar of water made him let go. Jormungandr also landed on the surface of the sea. Everyone was shocked by the scene of immortals fighting. Jormungandr was undoubtedly a monster and one that could destroy the world. He had just bitten the Gaia goddess into pieces. But what they didn't expect was that Qin Zhao could actually fight evenly with Jormungandr. Although both sides had only exchanged a few blows. But this was enough to show how terrifying Qin Zhao was. After Jormungandr landed on the surface of the sea, he controlled the lightning to shoot at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao didn't care about the lightning at all. He charged straight at Jormungandr's head. Bang! A ring of light exploded in the sky. Qin Zhao was sent flying hundreds of kilometers away. Jormungandr was also confused. The two combatants were already very far away from the fourth island. No one could see Qin Zhao anymore. Only Jormungandr's body was clearly visible. However, the momentum of the battle was not limited by distance. Both sides fought fiercely, and it was far more intense than the battle between Jormungandr and the goddess Gaia. The two sides seemed like they were really going to fight until the heavens fell and the earth cracked. The fourth island collapsed due to the battle between the two sides. Gaia could only transform into a giant dragon and fly old Ankh, Robert, Farmalati, and Ikeli into the sky. Gaia didn't dare to go near the battlefield either. If they weren't careful and got hit by the shockwaves, they could all be smashed into pieces. This kind of battle had long surpassed their knowledge and understanding. Old Ankh was glad that he had made the initial decision. Robert was also scared. If he hadn't listened to Old Ankh's advice, he probably wouldn't have ended up much better than Becky Lou Lisha. The two terrifying existences that could destroy the world kept clashing head-on. Moreover, both sides were truly enraged. Jormungandr felt that he had even defeated the goddess Gaia. Gaia's power had also become his source of power. He had devoured the primordial titans. He had done what the Asgard divine race had failed to do. How could he lose to this human before him? Up until now, he hadn't been injured at all. He hadn't even used any power. In this place, he was an immortal existence. Even the goddess Gaia couldn't destroy him. Not to mention this human. But Jormungandr didn't know that. As an ascendance-level being, Qin Zhao did not consume any energy at all. Qin Zhao's inner world had a perfect cycle that provided him with endless power. Therefore, in this situation, it was almost impossible to determine a winner. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.